All right, welcome all the fellow decoders out there around the world, wherever you are. My name is Logan, and this is Decode Your Reality. And this is part two of what I can tell you is going to be probably an ongoing series, right, Jordan, from Waters Above Crypto. That's who we have on here joining me today. And this is just as much a part of his community as it is mine, the Waters Above Crypto community. The first podcast we did was so phenomenal, and so many truth bombs and nuggets being dropped. I know that we're going to duplicate that during this transmission. And Jordan, thank you so very much for taking some time out of your day to join in and meet up with me and share your wisdom and knowledge. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for having me. I had a really good response to our last chat. A lot of people in my community loved what you were doing, and it seemed like a lot of people over at your community resonated with what we were discussing.
Yeah, make no mistake about that. Definitely had a huge, the podcast that we did, the first one, was a massive spike in my viewers. I mean, I know that had a lot to do with you promoting it and talking about it on your channels. So thank you very much for that. And then, I've been putting you on blast in a good way for recommending your channel and what you're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, as you noticed, nobody's on camera, and Jordan likes to keep it incognito. So I figured I would keep up the pace here and do the same thing. So there's going to be no video on this feed. This is going to be absolutely all audio. And I'm just going to suggest that you put on a pair of headphones, block out the outside world, and just immerse yourself in what we're about to get into, which is going to be a lot of information in the esoteric world, the cryptocurrency world. We may get and talk about it looks like we're going to be talking about some music and frequencies and what's going on the world stage. Probably is going to be a big topic during this transmission, because I personally have really been going gangbusters with decoding this upcoming Shemitah or / release year of the 49 and 50, 2021, 2022. And it was because of you, Jordan, of why I jumped into that. But man, I have a decode coming out, ladies and gentlemen, on this. I probably have 50 slides, 60 slides and counting on this upcoming presentation of, I haven't even named it yet, but but I'm sure that
name it Black Sabbath.
That's actually, and I'm a huge Sabbath fan too. So
that's a perfect name. It's funny because I'm working on my own stuff in regards to Bretton Woods and Shemitah and all these things that are going on moving into the 22 year. And you're sending me some stuff here and there, and I'm just doing everything in my power to like close out of the email and not get influenced by your work. It's hard because there's very few people out there doing this type of decoding and looking into reality through this lens of cycles. And just like we have the winter time where the leaves fall from the trees, the economy has its cycles too, where the leaves fall from the trees. And the smartest people in this matrix realm are just the best at remembering that cycles exist in every single aspect of our life.
Yeah, make no mistake about that the cycles do appear. I gotta say that when I started jumping into this whole aspect of the cryptocurrency world, and then looking at your work involving the sun and moon patterns, and of course now you're so big into the Shemitah, and what I'd like to do is have you kind of give your take on what this is, because this to me is probably one of the biggest things on the world stage that the majority of people out there that's probably listening to this haven't put any energy into, haven't paid anything attention to wise. So let's dive into this and discuss what this means and what we can possibly look at coming down the pike for the next year.
Yeah, well, for sure. So Shemitah is this beginning of what is called a sabbatical year, and that starts every 7th year And the previous Shemitah was from 2014, 2015, going from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. And this year, Rosh Hashanah is the 7th of September. So from the 6th through the 8th of September is the transition into the Hebrew year 5782. And when you add up 5 plus 7 plus 8 plus 2, you get 22. So this number 22 is really important, especially because we'll be in the year 2022. And I've just essentially seen that there's a cycle that repeats itself, and it seems to be in correlation with the Shemitah. And just to give a little bit more of an example of what's going on here, the most classic ones that we could remember in our lifetimes would be the 2007-2008 housing crisis. And then there would also be the dot-com bubble crash and 9/11. And this was a kind of the years, the two that I've studied the most, that I typically apply to my own investment thesis and how I'm seeing this market play itself out. And if you go into the S&P 500 chart and just study every 7 years, so for instance, we have this one coming up, 2021, 2022, you go backwards to the September of 2014 to the September of 2015, then you go backwards another 7 years. You just keep doing this over and over again. And if you see the pattern, you'll be able to see the pattern. You'll be able to see these cycles, and it's never created the end of a market. It's just being used in a sense to be able to reset the market. So there's been a lot of changes as well with these Shemitahs, like with the creation of Israel, when they became whatever they are, a state, a country. I mean, come on, what is it? And a lot of very important events going back to World War II, Great Depression, World War I. Literally almost everything is occurring during these Shemitahs. And that's what's really fascinating to me, is it seems to be sort of like the hidden gem that's also kind of right in front of our face. And if you go and study it from a Hebrew perspective, they look at it. And of course, we're talking about conscious things at a much higher level than the average person. So if anyone's of the Jewish faith and they're listening to this might even be completely, they might be oblivious to what we're talking about. And it's because that they're treating it as a sabbatical year to take off from, certain aspects of life, sort of treat it like a celebration. And that could be another reason why it used to be treated as a agricultural concept, and it got transitioned into a more modern day economic aspect of our lives. So in the Jewish faith, these Shemitahs are in alignment with forgiving debts and loan terminations and a lot of other things that I've just started to kind of scratch the surface of. And it seems to be like today we're all in the financial concept, we're all kind of more focused on the finances because we need money to live. We need to be able to buy food. We need to maintain a job. Ever since the pandemic, we've seen obvious destruction in the economy, like record worst GDP we've ever had since I think the Great Depression. We have QE, quantitative easing, that has surpassed all years combined somewhat tenfold. So there's just so many economic things that were already disastrous last year, and now we're at the verge of eviction crisis, housing market collapse. There's just so many things going on. So it needs to be reset. And that's where you get into the concept of the Great Reset. And when I say it needs to be, I don't mean by my opinion. I mean by the people who utilize this cycle of Shemitah.
Yeah, well said, man. And I mean, I just wanted to bolt on that, we're in this, every 7 years is magnified when you multiply that by another 7, which gives you 49. So ladies and gentlemen, you're going on the 49 sabbatical golden jubilee year, moving into the 50, which would be the 2022 season, and the 5783. Jordan, I don't know if you knew this or not, but the Hebrew year of the 2022 for the Gregorian is not only is it, it's 5783, but it's the 759th prime number. So that, and let me just tell you, that has taken me on a storm of information. And so for me, when I synchronized everything, I realized in the Chinese zodiac, this is the year of the ox, which is Taurus, the bull, which is probably why you're going to have this Wall Street crash, because the Wall Street was originated in the sign of Taurus. I think it was May 17th is when it was first developed. So you're in the year of the ox, and then next year, 2022, moves into the year of the tiger. And of course, tiger is linked to the stripes, and the only planet that is striped is Jupiter. And that is really where, and Jupiter's linked to the element tin, which is the 50th element on the periodic table. And that will be the year 2022, will be the 50 golden jubilee year. And dude, that's, the eye of the tiger right there, where Jupiter's, it's really fascinating because it's definitely Saturn. It's father son from everything I've realized. But Jupiter is, of course, the one that seems to be getting all the currency, since when you use numerology, Jupiter's 27 in Chaldean, and it's a match of the word currency being 27.
Right. Well, Jupiter being Zeus is the king of the gods, but the king of what gods, right? I mean, that's sort of been like the journey here is like, what exactly is this financial sector ran by, and who's calling the shots? And that's why in my work, I actually exposed this in today's video that I made as well. For those who are new to my work, definitely start at today's video, because that breaks down a lot of my work through a gematria or numerology perspective. But I essentially have come to a conclusion, and I'm open-minded to additions, but the financial sector is heavily ruled by Jupiter, Saturn, and Venus. And that's like the Trinity right there. And they're tied to the City of London, the Vatican, and Washington, D.C. And then you have like the hidden hand, if you will, of Switzerland and Switzerland's role in all of this. And then you could kind of continue it outwards, but they're getting their orders from a more energetic power source, which is the sun and the moon. And I showed this, and I don't know if I've showed you this on a decoding perspective, but when you type into the calculator Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus, you actually get the 73 in Chaldean, right? And that's the 21st prime. And then when you type in moon and sun, you get 37. So it's 73, 37, and that would be the 12th prime. So this has been a huge tie-in to my, like, kind of me just streamlining my research, and everything keeps coming back to these five: the sun, the moon, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn. But it seems as if that Saturn is this year. This is the year of Saturn, and that's why we have Bitcoin doing so well, because Bitcoin was created by Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi is Saturn, who's father time, and everything about Bitcoin is based on time, because it's the blockchain, which has time within half, and it creates scarcity. So everything is so predictable almost when you look at Bitcoin. Even the all-time highs, they're all happening around a new moon in December, and anyone could look in the chart and see that themselves.
Yeah, those are strong points. I mean, the Saturn and Jupiter together added up is 48, and that goes right back to the 50 when you start to bring it into the methodology that I use in using the string of pi. And of course, that ties into the 87 and 88. 88, of course, is tied to 39 and Yttrium and Saturn. And so I definitely think it's this father-son duo. I mean, you can bring Venus into that for the triquetra, right?
Well, with crypto, there's so many cryptos that are tied directly to Venus in particular, and they all got their all-time highs in the month of April. Again, April being tied to Apru, which is tied to Aphrodite, which is Venus. So this is a very powerful thing. It's a big reason why one of my favorite cryptocurrencies is Theta token. And Theta token matches, Theta matches Venus in all 4 base ciphers, which I like to use. Right. And the Theta in and of itself, the ties back to Greek, and the Greek mythologies are, they make up our whole reality as we know it on the main stage. Everything from the way that the law is structured to the way that the aesthetic of a court building. it's all
Yeah.
it's all matching that Greek aesthetic.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, so I want to go back to the Shemitah and kind of give some of the listeners a little bit of some downloads that you may be able to expand upon. But I was looking at the conversion using the biblical sense. And, you mentioned to the release. That's what it means. Shemitah means release. But when you take the word it means to redo over, to do it again. And then you have the word lease, which is usually tied to a contract.
Yes.
And it's a period of time. Like when you lease a car, you basically, you don't own it, you rent it, and then you got to give it back. And so the release, it's redoing it again. And it's going to be starting over to the point to where obviously this whole financial collapse, all the reset that's going to happen, and with the agriculture, Shemitah in the Hebrew is the 58, and that's tied to my work and the Puppet Master, and 58 in the String of Pi is going right back to Saturn and Jupiter again.
Yeah, wow, that's such an important connection too, because XRP equals 58 in the English ordinal cipher.
Yep, there you go.
And then the reduction obviously going to 22. 22 can't be reduced any further as a master number.
Yep. Yeah, well, yeah. In a sense, yes, absolutely. But it's just amazing how, when you look at who runs the world, who's behind the major plays on the world stage, all the decodes that I'm doing, especially when I do movies, television shows, much of the music, it's all based in Judaism, or at least these people that are operating and putting out this stuff, music and movies, they have a Jewish background or Jewish descent.
Yeah, because it ties back to Kabbalah.
Yeah. And I want to be very crystal clear. I'm not being anti anything. This is not putting any ethnic background down. I'm just pointing out the obvious through, countless hours of decoding people, places, and things. And it's just all. So if you think about this and the influence that these people have, whether or not you believe in Judaism, they do. And they believe in these cycles. And if you just watch Zeitgeist, you can clearly see who the major ethnic background is playing on the world stage. And they go by these cycles. And of course, when you get to the word Shemitah, meaning release, well, it says that it's not only tied to agriculture, but it's tied to loans and forgiving people's loans. So now you have the financial sector involved in this upcoming, not only just a regular 7-year cycle, sabbatical cycle, but this is moving into the grand jubilee 50-year cycle. And that to me has completely opened my eyes to something that I never paid any attention to, but it's always been there.
Yeah. Well, it's like what I said earlier, it's even a lot of the people that I've met who do practice Judaism don't even know about this. They don't know about the ties to the financial sector. They don't understand the resets or Jubilee or any of that. It's complete. Yep. They're completely oblivious to it. And could you blame them? Look at how many people are practicing religions who barely they don't understand their own religion, because they're indoctrinated into following orders of man. Yep. And man gets to impregnate the mind with their perception, the pope, the cardinal, the bishop, the pastor, whomever. And it's always been kind of the purpose behind my work to get people to focus on their truths, because even if you're hearing something that I've influenced you into being enlightened by, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the end of it. What Jordan says is what.
Yeah.
And I think, as a content creator, as somebody who might feel responsible for spreading very alternative outlooks on our reality, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is your truth. And that just goes back into this idea of religion. And when we're studying these religions and the truths behind these religions and who's founding them and everything that's going on, I completely agree with you. There seems to be some tie here to Kabbalah, and Kabbalah just basically implementing as much as possible from the ancient Egyptian mystery schools. It's magic. book. So to study the Kabbalah or the Talmud or any of these texts, if you wanted to study these texts, it might be quite difficult because you'd also need to have so much other study under your belt in order to be able to perceive what's going on and have utility behind it. Because what is information worth if it has no utility?
Yeah. Make no mistake about it, man. It is all related to magic, and we're all speaking magic spells. We're doing that right now. You're either going to accept or reject what either Jordan or I are putting out right now onto the world stage. And, you know, when you have a book, which is called the Holy Bible, the most read, the most prophesied, the most popular and sold book on the world stage today, and it's the greatest spell book ever written, whether you believe in it or not, those spells end up coming true because the most energy has been given to that book. And so, you know, I think that what's going on, especially like I was looking up these scriptures in the Old Testament, Deuteronomy 15 verses 2, which is talking about the release of these creditors, and it's called the Lord's release, and that's the Shemitah. And I think that these people that are running the financial sectors behind the world stage, they are going off of this, and they're like, well, it's the 50-year jubilee, and this is the perfect time to say all of our debts are forgiven, because there's no way that the United States would ever be able to pay back the debts that they've occurred over the course of time. Just not possible.
Well, it's all fabricated at like one way or the other. Like all the printing that's happening by central banks, it's not accounted for, and there's multiple ledgers, and we're not entirely sure which ledger is reality and which one is. I mean, the Federal Reserve can walk up to a computer and press a button and generate $1 trillion in a nanosecond.
Yep.
That's the goal of the future of going quantum and creating a digital cashless society and going forth with all these draconian things that we're seeing unfold today. And it only makes the most sense to create chaos in order to replenish or restart the whole protocol in and of itself. You kind of need to blow up the bubble to have it pop, and we're kind of all left in the soap stain of it. And that's what's the sad part about these people who are making up the majority. The overwhelming majority are unaware to the concept of what's actually happening, and they just blindly follow orders. I'm very keen on this idea because of me being involved in cryptocurrency, which is highly speculative and mostly involving very unsophisticated retail investors, people who actually don't know what the hell they're doing. And when you get a gang of a bunch of people who don't know anything about anything, and they're hyper driven by emotions, you're going to end up with even more volatility. So again, crypto is sort of being pushed through this final transition to lose its volatility eventually, shake out as many unsophisticated investors as humanly possible, and then leave only the ones who paid attention. But that's every moment in history, right? If you study any time in history, it's such a small percentage of people that had the eyes to see what was going on right before them, and to be able to time their plays in that scenario to be safe. I mean, right, you know, you're talking about crypto and this kind of stuff. I mean, I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to be in the 1940s and having fire bombs being dropped in your city. That's a totally different conversation. So the amount of you know, it's all about perspective. It's all about how you look at it. I try sometimes to do that with people, just to have an exercise of, hey, like, we are actually doing quite well right now. Like, our government created the greatest hoax of all time, which is to get people scared of an invisible thing that isn't scientifically proven to exist at all, using testing that isn't even actually a test, that was admitted to not be a test by the creator himself. I mean, that's the greatest hoax of all time. That's not even hurting people. There's no armies and militaries going around, you know, piling people into buses, and we're like living it large if you think about it, comparatively to other moments in history.
Yeah, well, that's why I think we're going to suffer the worst collapse ever, because it's not comparable to any of the times in our past timelines, and the numbers are just so staggering when you start to decode. If you're a decoder and you're looking at the timelines and you know about what this golden jubilee year is and what the number 50 means, that's why it's just, I mean, you think about the Shemitah talking about the release of the debts, which covers the finances and the crash of the economy. But then you have the other side, which is dealing with agriculture. And now you're getting into what the Bible talks about, the food shortages. So you're literally covering every area. And I think, I went back, I looked, the last golden Jubilee year was 70, that was 44, right? 44 and 45. Is that what it was?
I'm not entirely sure if we've been able to be accurate in this concept of when the Jubilees are happening, because there's multiple Jubilees. For instance, there's like a Royal Jubilee, which in 2022, it's called the Platinum Jubilee. You can just type in Platinum Jubilee and you can find out it all has to deal with the Queen of England. So it's like the word Jubilee, again, there's an esoteric and an exoteric, and it's really hard to determine exactly when these super cycles are occurring. Yeah. I'm under the kind of feelers that the 1971
71, you're right. Yeah, it's 50.
That was probably the one where we transitioned off of the gold standard as a currency and started moving to be backed by a commodity. Yep. And that is also super fascinating because, again, like we're coming up close to the 50th anniversary of that moment. And so Nixon actually organized with his committee before he went on live television on August 15th, 1971. He organized on the 13th of August, which was a Friday the 13th. And that's exactly what this year's Friday the 13th is too. Yep. So it's a literal perfect year. Like there's nothing about this. And then also we're currently in the 77th anniversary of Bretton Woods. Yep. So you have the 7 times 7 gives you the 49, the 49 leading to Jubilee with the 50th year of the Nixon shock. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much more perfect than this.
Yeah, I mean,
2022 is the master destroyer year.
Yep, it is. That's what I have on my. I actually, I have contemplated, and I have said that it's possible that the age of Aquarius officially starts in May of 2022. I know a lot of people would disagree with that. They would say, it's already started. That's okay, because you got to make the truth your own. But it kind of just lines up with, as you said, the math. The triple two is a big deal anyway. When you line up those numbers and you know exactly what that means. Of course, 2 is all linked to duality in Taurus and the Taurus fields, and you get into the physics realm and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, when you take this 5,783, the year on the Hebrew calendar that matches up with the 2022, and you start moving it around into another area that I'm really heavily invested into, and that's the sine and cosine waves. I don't know if I've talked to you about that, but
you did on our first conversation. I thought that was really fascinating stuff. I haven't played around with it yet, but it is something that I tried with a couple of the things that I use when I'm decoding, and I was pretty blown away by seeing the connections.
Dude, it's so accurate. I mean,
so really quickly, I just want to make sure of something. You've mentioned the 5,783. So that's the next, that's after the Shemitah. That's the end, transitioning out. So we're moving into the 5,782.
Correct.
That'll be starting in about a month from today.
Yep. September 6th, 7th, and 8th is when the Rosh Hashanah starts, the Jewish New Year, and that we get into 782. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just counting on the 49 and 50 is 2021, 2022, 5782, 5783. But what's fascinating, Jordan, that I found, is that all the stuff that I've decoded on this Shemitah and the Jubilee, and it led from that, then it led into Saturn, then it led into Jupiter, and then it led into Thor, the comic book Thor, because Thor is Jupiter. Mm-hmm. And then it led into Shiva. Last night, I came across it leading into Shiva with absolute certainty. It is all leading to Shiva, which is, of course, the master destroyer. Right. And it is in the pantheons of, and of course, the Vedas, out of all the ancient texts, according to what I've discovered, it's the oldest out of all of them. Now, I don't know if that's true, but it's definitely what it says on all the research that I've gathered together, is that The Vedas and the Hinduism is the oldest known religious text out there. And of course, again, these are all just synchronized. But what I found fascinating is that these are the numbers I found. When you use the sine and cosine waves for the 5,783 and then 2022, you get on the sine and cosine waves for both, you get 111 and 133. And when you add those two up, that's 244. Well, when you bring alchemy into that to bridge, to give you more of an idea of what's going on, that 244 is linked to plutonium. And plutonium is Shiva, okay? And when you take 1776, which is the birth of the United States, and you subtract that from 2022 or 2021, you're going to get 245, 244. Plutonium has several atomic weights. 244 is one, 245 is another. So these have completely told me with absolute certainty that the biggest crash that is ever going to happen to mankind, in my opinion, it will happen between now and next year.
Yes.
Based on these numbers.
Yeah. And another thing to mention, and I'm probably going to butcher this, and I have someone who knows Hebrew that could help when I'm done butchering this, but a sabbatical year is Shavit. Like Shiva. Shavit.
See?
So there's something there. There's definitely something there. But I've thought about this too, because kind of the predictive programming that we've gotten through, CERN or what's that one TV show with L, Stranger Things.
Stranger Things, yeah.
Yeah, man. It's like it's right in your face. It's right there, and I think it's amazing that you bring up Pluto and plutonium. I think we were talking a little bit about that before getting together. And Pluto being the god of the underworld, so that makes him tied to being the god of wealth.
Yep.
And remember, there's the most millionaires and billionaires are created during financial collapse.
Yep. And, speaking of Hades and Jupiter, they work in unison. Mm-hmm. If you go study the mythology on that story, Jupiter and Hades, they work in unison.
Yep. It's fascinating because I've talked about Pluto and kind of the ties that it has to cryptocurrency in ways. But with that being aside, I was just super fascinated with learning about the mythology of Pluto with the connection to the Matrix. And I have a Decode coming sometime soon. It'll be for, basically it'll be titled Neo is Satoshi Nakamoto.
Wow.
So because it's tied, Mr. Anderson is literally Satoshi. And this whole storyline and how it goes through showing you the machine realm and the purpose of the programmer, who the programmer is, and how the programmer becomes part of this transition into like enlightenment, if you will. But anyways, that being aside, that Matrix movie having Persephone, and Persephone being the wife of the Merovingian. Of course, the Merovingian is the 13th royal bloodline, but the Merovingian in this scenario would be Hades or Pluto.
Yep.
And he's the one who hoards the keymaker.
Yep.
Now the keymaker, again, and it just gets crazier and crazier. Like the Merovingian essentially being one of the gatekeeper between the machine world and the Matrix.
Yeah.
Super fascinating how they tucked that in there. And for those who study the mythology and then those who study it from a more, I suppose, esoteric perspective, you can tie in all the things through that Matrix movie. It was like the Matrix gave us the final the icing on the cake,
No, yeah, totally. I mean, well, yeah. And, I have a Decode that's on the shelf right now, breaking down the movie Jupiter Ascending, which of course was done by the Wachowskis.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, you haven't seen it? Okay. Well,
no.
I won't give away any of the nuggets of the movie.
I'm really bad at watching movies. Like I always get movies recommended to me, and I'm just like, I'm like a study freak, like I spend all my time making music and making decodes and working. It's like I never have any entertainment time. But when I do watch movies, it's like, oh man, I start wanting to decode them and then I can't enjoy it. It's a sickness.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You just get enthralled with the numbers and you
The
just
symbology,
yeah,
of these Hollywood movies, man. I told people this many times. If you want the truth, watch movies, watch Hollywood movies.
yep.
There's that one movie that oh man, it's really gonna bug me that I don't remember it, but it has John Goodman in it, and it has that one character from the that recent HBO series that was all about time travel and magic. And anyways, if I could remember this movie, it was incredible because it showed you how the government is essentially working for some extraterrestrial beings, and perhaps the archons, right?
Huh.
And they are in a world that we're kind of looking like we're moving into right now, where it's like civil unrest, military controls it, we have chips in our necks that get scanned if we want to go anywhere. Like it's pretty wild, man. Like if I can remember the name of that movie, if what I'm
It's not
saying doesn't.
Cloverfield. It's not Cloverfield, is it?
No, it's not. But if I remember it while we're doing this, I will definitely remember to
I'm sure
to tell
somebody
you.
knows. Somebody's probably like, just say it. I know what it is.
Yeah, I know. Like I'm so bad at remembering movies too. It's like weird. The more creative you get in life, you only really like focus on your creations. That's
Yeah.
been one thing that I've learned throughout my years of doing what I do here. I feel like I'm like it's all about creation, art, manifestation from the outside realm, and create from that. It's like it's madness. So like I could remember the numbers, I can remember the decodes, I can remember all that stuff, but when it comes to other people's creations, I always like slip up, where I have like almost a photographic memory when it comes to the things that matter the most to me. But it's really funny. People be like, oh, you remember that one movie or that one thing that happened that one time, like when you were traveling somewhere? And I was like, I should probably remember that since I was there, but I can't.
Yeah.
Like it just slipped my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. So I wanted to just digress and go back to this Bretton Woods, because I know you've talked about it quite a bit, and I just find it fascinating where they held it, what it was all about. For those of you that don't know what the Bretton Woods conference was, it was literally a week-long meeting between some of the highest members on the world stage, and then the outcome was putting the United States dollar as the world's reserve currency. And of course, that was shattered by Nixon.
The numbers on this are just so fascinating. So, I mean, it was 22 days long.
Yeah, 22.
That was the conference. It was 22 days long in 1944 with 44 allied nations.
Yep.
At the Mount Washington Hotel. Like, oh, dude, it's perfect. It's like literally as perfect as it gets.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the layers that I've decoded this from, because a lot of people still think that man is consciously doing this kind of stuff. And when I'm looking at my one graphic right here. I have the latitude, longitude of Mount Washington in New Hampshire, which guess what the latitude north is of the hotel that they were at? 44 degrees north.
Perfect.
And then the longitude is 71, and 71, of course, is tied to the show on Netflix called Lucifer. That one just came out, and the character they casted for God in season 5, his full name in numerology equals 71. And it goes way deeper than that. I'm just giving a broad overview, but it's tied to the element lutetium, which is, the 174, which is tied to the sun and currency. But, gold currency equals 44. And that's the latitude of the Mount Washington resort. And then, those 22 days, again, I mean, it's all tied to the 44, which is, half of 22 times 2. 44 being in the element plutonium, 244.
It's so great, these numbers. I was actually talking about this one recently, how if you consider like all the things that were just in the first paragraph of the Bretton Woods conference on Wikipedia, it was a gathering of 730 delegates from all 44 nations, and the amount of days of the event was 22. So if you're adding that all together, you get the 730 plus 44 plus 22 equals 796, and 7 plus 9 plus 6 gives you 22.
There you go. Well, when you look at the 796, whenever I see the 96, that's yin yang, and then the 7, you separate that, so it would be completion of the yin yang. If you look at it from an expansive, authentic version of the numbers themselves. So, ladies and gentlemen, on July 22nd, 1944, that's when they finished the conference in Bretton Woods, and it was a leap year, 1944. So it was the 204th day of the year. It was on a Saturday, which is Saturn's day. But what I thought was absolutely fascinating, Jordan, is when you plug in 204 into the string of pi, it's found at the 374th decimal digit. And the word God in the Chaldean is 374. So that's what's running this reality. Of course, time and Satan all equal 14. 374 equals 14. God equals 14. Satan equals 14. Time equals 14. It's all linked to the time god, which is linked to Saturn having a short period of time, and Saturn is
Man,
Satan.
that number 14 has been following me quite closely lately. I just hit 14,000 subscribers right before we got on this call. It's everywhere, man. It's everywhere I go. Like it's right now it's 2. I just looked at the clock. Obviously it's 2. So I have military time on mine. So it's 14. But anyways, continue.
Well, here's another knocker for you. The 14th element is silicon, and silicon's most abundant weight is 27.
Jupiter.
Jupiter,
right back to those 27s. Yeah, that 27 has really changed my perspective, because just studying the 27 club, for instance, that in and of itself is one of the big connections that I've thought about. And I've also seen through my study a lot of famous artists, their careers start at 27. A lot of them, they just have shit starts to their careers, and then for some reason when they turn 27, it's boom, they make a hit album, or they make this, you know what I'm saying? It's they come onto the world stage at the 27th year of their age, and then all these people that have a young start, they're dying at 27. So it's whoa, man. I mean, whether it's conspiracy to assume that those deaths were done by man on purpose, I mean, that's a whole different conversation. But I think that 27 number is so interesting. Again, coming back to Jupiter, coming back to Zeus, coming back to the king of the gods. Yeah, it's definitely a huge number. And remember the sine and cosine waves is 133, which, if you know the 33, it's just a hierarchy of that 33, given the 1 in front of it. So 133 is just the leader of the 33. Wow. Yeah, that's an interesting thing to mention, what you just said.
Yep.
I've never, I do remember us kind of having a little chat about the numbers before and after, kind of playing that role of let's just say 32, 33, 34, any number before and after, having that significance of being part of the transitory nature of the key number itself. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you take 244, which we've linked it to plutonium in this upcoming reset, it's not just a 244. It's 44 is gold currency. 44 is tied to the release of the currency. Gold currency equals 44. And then the 2 in front of it is going to tell you that it's duality, because 2 means duality. And so that's how you read these numbers. So plutonium is designed to smash whatever's going on and to release the currency into duality. And that's really what the meaning of the 244 is when you look at it from that perspective. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that is something. And one of the things I was also thinking about was because my mind keeps drifting off to September. It's just going to be such an important month. In crypto, it'll be a big important month too. But the September 9th, with that 9/9 date, that 9/9 coming back to Jupiter as well.
Yeah.
So that's another one that I've been thinking about too, how it's just basically that transition out of the last day of Rosh Hashanah, and being the 8th, obviously, and now you're in Shemitah, transitioning into the 9th, which is the 99, and all of this coming back to Jupiter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking. When we had talked before, I had said I was really looking at this September 9th date the 99, and the 99 is a huge number in the esoteric world if you know what you're looking at. Then I had a friend tell me, his friend said he's looking at the 18th, which is a 9 anyway if you reduce it down.
Right.
The word Jesus equals 18. Water.
Shemitah equals 18.
Yeah, that's right. So it could be this, September definitely is, the highlighted month for this 2021 season right here.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised because it's 2 days before a full moon. And of course, like in my work, the full moon is always that bearish energy. It's always that negative price action dips. Yep.
Yeah. Well,
one other really interesting thing, Logan, that I just thought about was how this September 11th that's coming up is a Saturday, right? And it's 240 months since 9/11.
Yeah. 200. That's 24.
How crazy is that?
Yeah.
Oh my, like that's such a find. I just got that kind of like skimming through my notes. I have so much stuff for September, but it's like where to begin, oh man, did I tell you about that Satoshi stuff that's going on? That Satoshi white paper connection for tomorrow?
No, I don't. If you did mention it, I don't remember. So go ahead.
Yeah. The Satoshi white paper. So for any listeners that you have that aren't aware of who Satoshi Nakamoto is, it's just a pseudonym. It's a made-up artificial person who's allegedly the creator of the Bitcoin blockchain cryptocurrency. And the Bitcoin white paper, which is essentially the protocol of how this technology works and what its use case is and the fundamentals, etc., it was created on the Halloween of 2008. So what is October 31st?
Yep.
October 31st, and of course that's Samhain. So, but that's just a side note. What I found really fascinating about this is tomorrow, and it's funny we're talking right now because this is so soon. Tomorrow will be the 666th week since the launch, since the launch of the Satoshi white paper. Now, that's another interesting, the 666 weeks is pretty fascinating because that is 111,888 hours, the 111888. That's a very special amount of time to equal those numbers, the 666 and the amount of hours in between. So I think that's just, wow. Wow, what a numerological significance. So that means the 13th of August, which will be that Friday the 13th that's coming up, it'll be the 224th day of the year, and Satoshi Nakamoto equals 224, and that'll be the 666th week and 6 days.
The 13th of August?
Yeah, without including the start and finish dates. So I think that is such a wild connection, how this all is happening and intersecting at this time.
Yeah. Well, when you bring the cards of illumination into that, the August 13th card is the King Clubs, which is the same exact card as September 11th. So.
Yeah, and tomorrow being the 6th, that start of the 666th week since the white paper was released is also adding up to 19. And that 19 number does not treat us well.
That's the battery. Yeah, that's the sun card in the tarot, and the word battery equals 19. Yeah,
I don't think we've went through 119 date numerology this whole year where it wasn't bad. So maybe there's a pattern break in the making, but that in and of itself has been a big thing. So that 19 number is pretty destructive for the markets.
Yeah, I mean, well, hey, you go right back to this Bretton Woods Saturday, July 22nd, when they finished it. July 22nd was the 6 clubs, which is the 19th card in the deck. So it's a tribute to the sun, obviously, making the currency, and the currency is ruled over by the sun. The sun is gold, and that's what gets all the currency, Yeah,
the sun seems to almost be a frequency itself.
It is.
Right? Like that would be my way of, like, if I had to describe what's going on there, it's like it almost seems to be the frequency itself.
Yep.
And there it's giving light to all things. It's like the cosmic egg.
Yep. Make no mistake about it, man. It's the boss. I mean,
what's your opinion on Sirius B?
Oh, well, I think the Sirius A and Sirius B are what they say is very possible they're in a binary system with our sun, and Sirius B in particular is the smaller of the two, right? And could be the black sun of Sirius. What are you leaning towards?
Well, I've just like in my studies of the occult and what's going on here, it seems that there's two major energy spheres, or like we just mentioned the term cosmic egg, like it's like there's two there. I've also thought about this from the perspective of this Solomon star, like Solomon being sun and moon,
Sun
and how
moon.
there might be like these two counter rotating energy systems that are sort of intersecting around each other. And we've heard people's stories or accounts of even recent sightings of multiple moons in the sky, multiple suns. I just thought like, maybe that's part of the new age, kind of this intersection, if you will, with a new reality as we know it, where the cosmic optical illusion that we see when we look up starts to even change. But of course, that's a whole different rabbit hole.
It is. I mean, Sirius in the Chaldean is 16, and that's linked to Shiva. Shiva is 16.
Right.
Sirius,
wow.
always known as the destroyer, right?
So, also, cosmic egg gives you the 81 in English ordinal, coming back to Venus. I think that's an interesting tie-in too, because Venus being that divine feminine, Lucifer, the morning star.
Yep.
The morning star, the brightest girl in the sky.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Christ said that he was the offspring of David, and the word David equals 16. So it's a match of Sirius. So,
wow.
Yeah,
David giving you the 22 and the full reduction. So that 22 is a very powerful number in Hebrew and Kabbalah.
It's tied to Tetragrammaton. 22,
right.
Titanium. Titanium is Saturn's moon, Titan. And titanium has an atomic weight of 47, which is Tetragrammaton. So it's I think, when you look at how the stories of mythology have played out, the Olympians threw the Titans down here into hell, and the Titans were ruled by Saturn. Saturn's father time. We are ruled by time. We're faced against the clock.
Right.
And we only have a short period of time. So it's just really interesting when you kind of bring in mythology, which I think is more fact than it is.
Yeah, that's the cornerstone of my work. Like I focus on that pretty much, and that was the most like enlightening piece of my own research. Because like I don't know what your experience was with this whole decoding thing, but I self-taught myself. I think I remember telling you on the last podcasts, like I was inspired by your work for sure, but a lot of the things that you were doing in your work were not necessarily applicable for the charts. So I had to like take some sort of like different approach to be able to figure out like, how do I determine price action of these cryptocurrencies? How do I determine dates and when these things will happen in the future? So that, your work, I remember being really inspiring just because of the complexity of it all, being able to take periodic table, tarot, cards of illumination, all these aspects, and having them all come to be this like a grand decode. I always thought that stuff was really fascinating, but I was at a stage in my life where I needed to make money. So I was like, what do I do to figure out this code so I could trade better? That was actually like, I don't even think I've ever said that before to anyone, but that was why I got into decoding. Because I knew once I saw Bitcoin hit 33,333 on the second day of this year, I was just like, that's it. It's over. That's the symmetrical date, the 1/2/21. So I said to myself, why wasting my time like on all this other stuff when it's just right in front of our faces?
Yeah.
Like Bitcoin hitting the $42,000 price target on the 8th day of this year, the 1/8 coming back to Venus. So it just, everything started to like really solidify for me once I saw the gematria code and all of that stuff. I used to study it, but I couldn't figure out a way to apply it. And that was the biggest like hurdle, I suppose, when you're doing any of your own research, right? It's like, where do I apply this to be able to prosper while I'm here in this matrix? But yeah, that's been a really important thing, I think, for me, like to see the mythology is actually the truth of what's going on. It's coming back to these mythologies. And although those stories might be diluted heavily, throughout your study, you could find, once you have the eyes to see or the ears to hear, you could be able to find information a little quicker and a little bit more efficiently. But in and of itself, I mean, just seeing how this stuff all ties back to itself and then it's showing it up on the charts, that was like, wow, man. Because not only is this information just fun, it's also something that could be utilized for a potential career and something that could be super helpful, and here we are. And now that's what I'm doing for my life's work.
Yeah. I mean, it's same with me. I mean, very well said. And you've given me a massive spark and a kick in the ass to look at, extended pieces beyond what I'm already doing now. And I'm, grateful for that. And here we are joining forces again and talking about this decoding. The layers that people are decoding at right now. I mean, I know it's not, I guess I'm not trying to give everybody credit or myself or, but are the people that are running the world in the heavy trenches anyway, are they really sitting down consciously with all these layers and putting them all together before they put out this information? Or are they just putting it out because they're being used and it's just all connecting perfectly because it's supposed to? That's the big question I think everybody should be asking themselves. I know many people have a hard time grasping my concepts of what I believe, and I'm not forcing them on anybody. I'm always about make the truth your own. But from everything that
you're very clear about that too. Like, I mean, that's why I love, like, I was prepping dinner the other night and I was just like, I saw that you had your upload from the other day. And I was like, if I'm going to listen to something, I want it to be this, because I know your message. And I know the way that, even if somebody gets a little weird in the live chat, you're so good at just like handling that and controlling the space and getting people to be able to understand that it's your truths. Like Logan's truths are his truths. And if you're not able to resonate with this transmission, then it's okay. You could move on.
Yeah. Thank you.
There's a skip button in life.
Yeah. It's really interesting. You're going to get, and how it is, man, you're going to get people that, will critique. I mean, I get people that critique, like, your voice is too loud. You're saying folks too many times. You're saying ladies and gentlemen too many times. And I'm like, man, that's all.
I love it, man. I'm an alchemist. You give me love or hate and I transmute it into whatever I want. If I want gold that day, I make some gold. If I want platinum that day, I make some platinum. Give me all the smoke. It's like what Kanye West said once, like, just give me all the smoke. Because I'm creating no matter what. Like, and that's part of manifestation. That's part of being your own god or goddess. Like, you just need to take control, and all the critique that's out there, it's just energy. Everyone is just like, maybe coming back to this idea of, and I say this in my live streams when I need to, is if you're not creating anything and then you're coming down on creators or people who are artists, you're just being a parasite. And parasites are abundant in our realm, but they need to be also called out as parasites. And I think that word in particular, it's so sharp. When you hear somebody who's doing well in life or helping people in this realm call you a parasite, you really need to look in the mirror and reflect and see what's up. You know what I'm saying? And like, I try to be very blunt and very realistic. Like, hey, I'm here doing what I'm doing so that I could change the world. I wake up every single day of my life, and even if only 14,000 people hear me, I speak as if the entire planet is hearing me, because I am part of the universe as a whole. I treat myself as a fragment of a bigger cosmic experience. And I know my higher self is listening to everything I'm saying. That's why, like, maybe when I'm talking, like, I'm not perfect. I'm not good at fully delivering my message because I'm not thinking too hard about it. I'm just channeling my ideas. I'm not trying to orchestrate it all. I'm trying to give you raw data. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's definitely important that people learn that if you're going to talk and be negative about people who are actually doing something with their life, that might be a sign that you're just a little bit more on the fearful side of this experience here in the Matrix. And you need to go through some trials and tribulations to be able to determine what it is you're here for. What is your purpose? Because there's no purpose in this planet for people who just sit around being a troll.
Yeah. Well, I think that, I find it rather interesting. And I actually think it's pretty funny because I'm like, would this person go to like a concert and then have backstage passes and then go to the artist and be like, I didn't really like the way you played that guitar solo. I think you should probably shorten it up by about 10 seconds. And maybe you want to go a little bit heavier on this. I mean, is that really the layer of reality that some of these people are at? I mean, would they actually do something like that? And I would probably say the answer would be no. But because it's me, and they can hide behind an avatar, it's a little bit different, which I get. I mean, I respect everybody's comments, but my toleration. I mean, I'm now having to moderate. I'm getting more active in my moderation during my live chats, and I put people on timeout because I don't need to. Number one, it spreads toxicity very quickly because then people end up jumping in on those comments, and then
it's a cancer. It's a cancer. It's a parasite.
Totally. Right. Totally. So
and it masticizes itself into sometimes pretty solid people.
Yeah.
Like people who are normally well behaved.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. You only need one chimp to take a shit in its hand and throw it for the other chimps to see how funny and hilarious that is to do. And then the chimps follow.
I'm going to use that one. I'm going to use that analogy next time I do my live.
It just is what it is. I mean, I also look at that from a perspective of our called controllers, like the elites or whatever you want to call them. Like they probably, and again, I can't speak for them, but they probably envision us as a bunch of chimps. Where if we didn't have a law and order, we would most likely just be throwing shit everywhere.
Yeah.
As we sort of do, but I'm talking about like on a consciousness level. Like the average person needs their prison. Although this earth is the prison planet, they need their prison mentally because they are a parasite. They don't have the ability to be part of a functioning higher consciousness experience. They're just a cog. They're a cog in a big machine that generates currency that is used by them. And I've learned that I could do the same. And that's no disrespect to anyone out there, but that's what it is. You could either come to this space that I'm hosting. Again, you're not forced into listening to the Waters Above Crypto channel or the Decode Your Reality channel. We're doing this out of the love and out of the purpose that we feel we serve here. And you could decide whether you want to critique the guitar solo, or you can just take it in as an experience of something that might be different from what you're usually experiencing on the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, because I mean, it's right. No one's forcing anybody to listen to either Waters Above Crypto or Decode Your Reality. I tell people, I'm like, this is my style. And if I listen to you, I would not only be inauthentic with the way I'm going out, expressing myself, but then there's going to be somebody else that's going to come down and say they don't like that style. So it's like you're just completely just chasing a fantasy that's not even your own. And
it's another Kanye West quote. I don't take advice from people less successful than me. And that's on an artistic level, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not even about success of finances or relationships or any of that. It's just like what you do, you are a very highly proficient version of what you do. And you do it at a rate that is so rare in our planet as a whole. And that's what makes you unique, right? So with that being said, it's like, who's more successful than you at what you do and showcasing your truths? No one, because you're not copying anyone. You're not a replicated, like that's been kind of my purpose in my work. Is I actually kickstarted my YouTube journey because I was doing everything in private. I don't know if I told you that. I had private clients I was working with on cryptocurrency, and I had enough that it okay, but they were pushing me to deliver some content, and I finally did it. And I decided, like, do it as if I do it with my private clients, like just be straight up and tell exactly what it is that you're channeling through via whatever aspect of informational delivery we're getting. And by doing that and being okay with being wrong sometimes or failing in whatever, that whole like journey of just not being worried about what other people care about, like what other people think or whatever people look for in a video, you know? Like I could sit here and I could edit my videos for 5 hours and add music and do all this extra, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just decided, like, this is the way I do it. This is what works for me. I'm trying my best to get better at it. 1% every day means I'll be 365% better at the end of the year. But for the most part, like, I don't need somebody less successful than me telling me how to do what I do. Like, that's kind of the overall point. It's like, again, also when it comes back to content creators, like there's a lot of lack of collaboration because people do different things. And you doing what you do that's different, that's an opportunity for me. That's an opportunity for you, right? Like, we're able to collab, like we're offering different genres of music. And that's the beauty of it. We could jam together, even though we're making different genres of music.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. Like, I think more content creators, especially conscious people, should be collaborating at a time like this, because this is the time, right? Like, we're moving into probably the greatest reset, the greatest change of our reality. And for highly enlightened people who are artists, who are artistic and capable of providing a unique outlook on reality, this is the time for us to get together and work and collaborate and deliver our truths.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, you know, ladies and gentlemen, if you just resonated with what Jordan said, I mean, if you're somebody who just is out, if you're authentic with yourself and you're just out there critiquing people, well, maybe you want to get into the space of creating your own content and maybe putting out some videos. Cause, you know, I think you'd agree, Jordan. My least favorite mode of communication is text and email, because they take too long, emails. Okay. I try to respond to them all, but I'm all about voice messaging. But it's like when I'm doing my live podcasts and people are in the chat and they're typing away, they can't really get their emotions across, you know, because you're typing on a keyboard. And so you can't really tell exactly what they're really saying on a personal level. So it's very challenging to interact with people like that. But, you know, I'm going to encourage all of you out there that are in the decoding world, start making videos, you know, or at least get on like a call with somebody like this and just start shooting the shit and talk about your mind, where you
that's
can
like the big
yourself.
point of my my Discord. Like, I've been wanting the people in my community to start voice chatting more and like just sharing your ideas, because like if there's going to be, like, when you're with conscious people, there's going to be disagreements because there's a lot of ego in that space as well. And like, I visualize ego as both a blessing and a curse. Like, the ego is your shell, it's your egg, you know. It's what keeps you from being parasited by people who are trolls or parasites. But at the same time, it's something that if you don't keep in check, like if you don't check in with it and be like, yo, ego, like, everything all right? Like, if you don't do that once in a while, it's gonna take a hold of you, right? And that's kind of the one thing that I've thought about with like highly conscious people. And it's not something, my community is beautiful. Like, it's mind-blowing how all the decoders, astrologers, people that are bringing something to the table that I don't actually necessarily have the time to focus on. I love that. But then also, I agree with you, that emotional side of sharing your voice. Like, if I was to, when I type things out, I notice how it's just not me. What I do is I share my gnosis through the frequencies of my voice. Like, that's what I do best. So when I'm typing and like sending stuff like that, like, it's actually nice to be able to chat with you, where we're able to voice chat with each other as text, like a walkie-talkie almost. That's like so much better form of communication.
Yeah, because it's the second best thing besides sitting there face to face talking. You know, so totally, I love all that stuff, and that's why I'm, you know, encouraging all of you decoders out there that, you know, you think you got it figured out, and you know, you got to make the truth your own. And I say that with a light heart. So if you feel like you have things to add, start making some videos, or, you know, go just start talking on your phone, make some audio tracks, and, you know, and collaborate with other people. And because your voice counts in your world, because all that matters really is your world. You know, I'm just living in your world, Jordan's just living in your world, and it's a contradiction because you're living in ours. And all that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, you're the universe. Like I've talked
Absolutely.
about this idea that you're God and Jesus Christ at the same time. And I
Yep.
visualize Jesus is actually just like a computer, like the hardware. Jesus is just the physical like MacBook, but that MacBook is worthless if there's no Wi-Fi connection.
Yep.
So that Wi-Fi connection is like your enlightenment or your ability to be able to receive the light. Like on a camera, it could be called aperture. It's your aperture is the Wi-Fi. And then once you get the Wi-Fi, now you have connection to God. Now you have the connection to infinite access of information.
Yep.
So that's like all the story of Jesus is to me. Like I look at it as the body. It's the physical body of the experience of being in the matrix.
Absolutely.
And you need to go through some trials and tribulations to be able to become able to allow in light. That's what the masses struggle with. They're here. They're a bunch of basically walking zombie Christs.
Yep.
They're a bunch of empty vessels.
Yep. Well, I mean, I always relate it to the game of chess, and there's a reason why there's 64 squares on a chessboard, not the 64 possible codons of our DNA. 64 numbers of the ancient I Ching system, 64 numbers in the human design system, but 64th element is the GD element. But it's, you get into, since I started studying more into the Shemitah and the upcoming reset, which led me to Jupiter, which then led me to Thor, which then led me to Shiva and plutonium. It led me to this word called I can't pronounce it. Macranthropy. I think that's how you say that. Macranthropy. I don't know if I'm saying it right or wrong, but anyway, it's basically the entire universe as this anthropomorphic body, and the entire universe is just separate components combined into one. And it would be kind of linked to this. If you've ever seen this cartoon, I saw it when growing up, this cartoon called Voltron. I don't know if you ever watched it.
No, I've heard.
Never seen it? Okay. No. Yeah, there's another one called Thundercats, right? That was on Hanna-Barbera's World of Super Adventure. And those cartoons are showing you that these separate components come together to form this giant, this robot to save the universe, defender of the universe, Voltron. And that's what this whole idea is through the ancient texts of the Vedas, is that's what the universe is. And every component is assigned a specific job or duty. And that's exactly how we all are in this, this egg, this cosmic egg that's going to be hatched pretty soon, is that we're all little babies inside the little egg. We're all little transistors feeding the battery. And literally, they think we're playing the game of chess. And if you look at the game of chess, the dominant pieces on the board that make up the most are the pawns. There are 16 pawns on the board. And those pieces are known as the disposable pieces. You'll give those pieces away to set up a bigger and better move to ultimately put the king in checkmate. But, the majority of people on the world stage, like it or not, and these are just my opinions, they're pawns. And they have the ability in the game of chess to march down the board and become a queen.
Yeah, so that's what I was just about to say.
Yeah.
That's the special piece right there, man.
It is, because you, in this incarnation, you have
you don't only get the chance to be a queen. You could become a rook. You could become a bishop. You could fucking be whatever you want to be.
Right. But ultimately, typically most people pick a queen because.
Yeah, for sure. But that's where it gets even deeper. The pawn could become what it wants to become.
Right. It can become everything. Exactly. So, but the majority of people on this world stage, because I believe everything's just scripted and it's all written out before. Predestination equals 55. And anytime, ladies and gentlemen, in the decoding world, to digress, anytime you have the 5, the 50, 51, 52, those are, from my research, those are all Jupiter numbers. 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, all the way to the 59. Those are all Jupiter numbers. And then you get into the 60, and that's then becomes Saturn, the father.
And how are you calculating that? I would love to know more about that.
Well, the 50 is tin, the element tin.
Yep.
Which has got the atomic weight of 119, and it is tied to the tin has a lot of these elements they have several atomic weights, but tin's average is 118, but its most abundant is 119, and the alchemical symbol of tin is almost an identical match to XRP.
Right. Yeah.
And tin is known as the merger of, I've kind of coined it the merger of worlds, but it's, in the string of pi, it's tied to the 31 and 32, and which is the 63, which goes back to the 29, and that's Yaldabaoth, but that's for a different story. But anyway, it's the 50th element being tin, and Jupiter is tied to the synchronization of the fifth chakra, which is the throat. And the throat chakra has 16 petals on it, and 16 is Shiva and Sirius, tied to the destroyer. But the fives are the throat chakra and all that, speaking the spells. I guess where I started from is using astrology. The fifth house in astrology is owned and operated by Leo, the Lion King, king of the jungle. And in the middle of the
Lion of Judah.
Lion of Judah. And the king of the jungle is on the numbering dial pad is the 5, which sits in the very dead center, the bullseye. If you place a pyramid over the dial pad of your phone, the 5 is going to be in the very pinnacle, the apex of the pyramid. And so that's ruled and operated by the sun. The sun is the lord of the 5th house. And if you correlate that to the Chinese zodiac symbol 5 is the dragon. And that's tied to the great dragon was hurled down. Dragon and Michael both equal 22. Chaldean.
Yeah, Archangel. Yeah.
So I think that, there's a show on Netflix called The Good Place, a very fascinating show, and that they have Michael being coined as the architect of the good place.
Yeah, the architect.
The architect.
Right.
Yeah, which is Jupiter. And so that's how those 5s, and then I just know tin, and that's the Tin Man and the Wizard of Oz looking for his heart.
Right. Yeah.
And when you synchronize that right there, it's mind blowing, because the guy they casted to play the Tin Man, his real name was John, but he goes by Jack, which is where, the Jack and the Beanstalk Jack, or Jack this, Jack that. So his name's Jack Healy, but he was born on August 10th. And the element tin, the word tin equals 10. So he's casted as the Tin Man, born on August 10th, and the word tin equals 10, which is the 50th element. And this guy has the birth card of the 3 diamonds, which is the 29th card. And then you bring in the string of pi, and of course 27 is found at the 28th and 29th decimal digits, which is not only encapsulating the word architect being 28, but 29 being that 3 diamonds, which this guy Jack, who played Tin Man, is born against. So it's all just bringing to the 5.
This is really fascinating too, because I just started thinking about this 64 number that you brought up, and this 64 coming back to Yahweh, the Yodevah, and then also coming back to Israel. But then another thing that's interesting is if you take 6 times 6 times 6 times 6, so 6 times 6 four times, you get 7,776. And the 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 6 equals 27, coming back to Jupiter.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
so it's like no matter how you cut it up, you keep coming back to that King of Gods.
Yep. I mean, dude, so most people know Jupiter has this big red spot on it. And it's in the Wikipedia, it's called the Great Red Spot. That's the title they've given it.
Seriously?
That's what they call it.
I love looking at Wikipedia.
The Great Red Spot.
Yeah.
It's really funny, right? But so that
and remember, Adam being the body in Hebrew.
Yep.
Or Adam is the red man.
Yep.
That's the translation of Adam.
Yep. Which is, linked to blood and.
Oh man! Now that you brought up the Great Red Spot, I hate you. Toots, it's literally. This is fucking crazy. Wow, man. It gives you the 181 and the 224 in the same ciphers as Satoshi Nakamoto.
Yeah. Well, so
I'm over it. I'm over it. Because the 181 brings you to the 42, the 42nd prime.
Yeah.
And that, yeah. Oh,
Reincarnation is 42. Crucifixion is 42.
See, this is I tell some of the people when I'm doing my decodes, like in my Gematria masterclass that I did last month, I said Wikipedia is sometimes the fucking best.
It is.
Like Wikipedia, because even if it's all fake, it's the narrative.
Yep.
And that's what works the best with these decodes, is just go with the narrative, man.
Yep.
And then use your other studies that you've accumulated over time from the truth, and then see where it all connects through this code.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's definitely, so when you extend on Great Red Spot's 48, right? And it's tied to cadmium, which has an atomic weight of 112, which is the mirror of the 211, 47th prime number. But what's fascinating is that in alchemy, on the periodic table, you can spell some words out using the abbreviations of some of these elements. And the one that I found so very amazing was the I am that I am. And that's bringing in the iodine, which is an essential element that your body needs, by the way.
Yeah.
Protecting the thyroid, which of course is where the throat chakra is, which is tied to Shiva and the 16 petals and the 5, going back to Jupiter again. But the iodine is the 53rd element, and then the am is the 95th element, and it's called the Mericeum. So when you go 48 digits from the Great Red Spot into the string of pi, and you add all those digits up, it's 241. And the 241 is the atomic weight of the am, the 95th element.
Yeah.
So you have,
and then of course you could also look at the am as like an AM when like the sunlight hours are.
Yep. Or AM radio. Or AM radio.
And I know like in Chinese Chinese medicine, they do the like what is it called, midnight noon law? Have you looked into that?
No.
So midnight noon law is really interesting because essentially you could time out the types of foods you eat depending on their growth cycle.
Okay.
So for instance, like you have fruits being the highest tree, the highest food that grows, and then you would have the lowest being like the allium or the things that grow underground, and then you would have the fish being a separate thing of the sea. And there's a time at which all of those things can be consumed, and this midnight noon law is sort of a different way of looking at food consumption, because it's not all about what you're eating and the diet side of it, like where people are just so focused on like macronutrient and micronutrient profiles. It's more about like the timing of it, and to eat fruit when it's sunlight hours as early in the day, and then transition into eating like grains, legumes, starchy foods in the sort of afternoon, and then later in the day you want to be eating things like your meats. And it's just it's not what I use personally, but it just kind of reminded me of the AM.
Interesting concepts. Well, yeah. And to kind of finalize this particular find that I found with the Great Red Spot, it leads to the I am, which I'm going to show in my upcoming presentation, these two elements, iodine and americium. And when you take iodine and americium and you put them in the Chaldean, it equals the number 50, which is tin, which is Jupiter. And, in God we trust equals 50. So it's just, and it's tied to crypto, folks. So, quantum's 27, Jupiter's 27, currency's 27. I mean, I don't know how much more hand wringing on the wall people need to see that.
Yeah, it's such a powerful number. I mean, in my work, it seems to be very heavily centered around these 27s, 24s, 42s, and then the 1881 with Venus. And then of course with the Venus, you're getting that 25 in the Chaldean. Yep. And that 25 is definitely important as well, because that's the 5-5. That's the 5 times 5. And of course it's a quarter, right? Yep. So there's so many ways to look at these numbers, but you even get, and I use all 4 base ciphers, but you get that tie to Jupiter through Venus as well with the 27.
Yep. Well,
and the reversible reduction cipher.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different layers. That's why when you take all these layers were thrown out there, it's like, how could mankind ever possibly create something like this? I mean, people think that the people in the news are or sports, they're all in on it, and they're doing this big, trying to pull the woolly over your eyes, and they're doing this big conspiracy and ritual in front of you, because they know what they're doing. I think some people can consciously code some things, but I've looked at and observed my own personal life.
Well, I mean, arguably there are some events that are definitely intervention.
Absolutely.
Like 9/11, I think would be a great example of like ritualizing an event. George Floyd would be another good one, like where they clearly, like the Twin Cities, Twin Towers sort of thing going on.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place for this like manipulation of they're clearly following what's going on, but then there's also these huge anomalies like me and you spoke about with that guy Boyd Anderson scoring all those goals in a seemingly humanly impossible fucking time.
Yeah.
People like Wayne Gretzky or Mario Lemieux, like these famous hockey players, haven't even come close to this goal.
Yep.
And this guy has blown them out of the water, and then he has the most fascinating like rest of his life.
Yeah.
I mean, right now it seems like he's sort of in like a different position, but I mean, his story is insane. And although he's not that savvy with gematria, after having a phone call with him that was very long, he's kind of admitted something similar to what you're saying. Like, I was sought after because of the goals that I scored in that record, and the amount of time was a biblical number sequence. So they basically looked at me like I was a fucking chosen one of them, a chosen one, basically. Yep. And that kind of also comes back to these like with your work, when you're telling me that what was it, like the 7 of diamonds, and that makes me the 33rd card in the deck, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I would have never, like, I didn't know that. And I didn't know that. And I told you, I don't decode myself. I don't really spend time decoding people. But, when I start to do the decodes on other people, and I see like, oh, their parents' names are adding up to this, and like this number sequence ties back into their connection to me and our compatibility, because of course they found my work and then they sought me out to fulfill a decode for them. So yeah, I think it's there's so much more of it is natural. It's probably upwards of 99% of all the things that are happening in our reality are not the manipulation of man by ritual, but it's that 1% where it's the most obvious shit ever. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Where it's like the pandemic crash in the cryptocurrency market coming to a bottom on the Friday the 13th of March, like and Bill Gates stepping down the same day from Microsoft. The recent crash that just happened for the cryptocurrencies on May 19th being 111 days from the start of the Shemitah, and the absolute bottom price for Bitcoin hitting at 9:11 a.m.
Yeah.
Not 1 minute later, not 1 minute before.
Yeah.
And I know they can manipulate these numbers because I've seen the order books. I know the way that it's on a computer. So they could calculate their buy orders or their sell walls according to a time released algorithm as well. Mm-hmm. But of course, I would assume that there's upwards of 90% of crypto, probably 99% of cryptocurrencies, because remember, there's 11,000 cryptos. There's maybe 10 of them that matter. And out of those 11,000, of course, there's no gematria ritual being implemented on them. How could there be? That would be too much coordination. Yeah. But for Bitcoin, Ethereum, like, I mean, I could go on and on. Ethereum hitting the all-time high on the 33rd week and 3rd day since Rosh Hashanah, ETH equals 33. You do it forever. And it was a blow off top in Ethereum. So it wasn't like it traded at those prices for 20 days straight. It only did it that day. Yeah. It's beautiful. I showed in my work today the same thing. The ritual with Ethereum being upgraded to the London hard fork, London equaling 31 in Chaldean. We're in the 31st week of the year. And today being 33 days from Shemitah. And again, it's performing really fucking well, and it's like you could use this code in the top cryptos to be able to come to some considerations that there might be a natural occurrence for a majority of them, but I do think there are events in this world without doubt. Hurricane Katrina, like, where it's just why would it happen that way, the way they did it? Like, do you remember Katrina, where they put all those people in a freaking dome?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
the fuck, man?
That was crazy.
That's so dehumanized. That's cattle. You're
Yep.
treating people like cattle.
Yeah, that's straight
So
cattle right
how
there.
could that be natural? Like, I just don't, there's an aspect to what's going on sometimes where you can see that they're doing it the way they're doing it, because it creates deharmonization in our species.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's obviously, people out there that are soulless in a sense. They're cold-blooded. They don't have emotions like human beings do, so it's easy for them to justify their actions, right? So there's that. I mean, there's all these species on the world stage today, and we're all a melting pot of that. And for the majority of people out there that are listening to this transmission, you would consider yourself a good person, right? I mean, that's what most people would consider themselves as, even though we're imperfect and creating all these what we call mistakes. But then you have these other species out there, which, then you get into survival of the fittest and apex predators. Well, these apex predators that are running the top echelon, do they really have feelings like we do? Would they consider themselves good people?
I actually think me and you are more like them.
Uh-huh.
And I've told this to some of my group too, and I say it through the lens of me just paying attention to the voices and the questions that I get, because I'll hear people and I'll see people in the comments section of my videos or in my live streams, and they'll be like, oh, do you see all those people driving around with a mask on while they're alone? Like, they're talking shit about these people who are on their level. Now imagine what Hillary Clinton feels.
Right.
She's looking down at, I don't want to assume, again, I don't know Hillary Clinton. I don't talk badly about people that I don't know. I'm really practicing that. Like, I'm willing to admit that. I'm really working on it. And it's through my audience, through my supporters, where I see the way they feel about people who are in this realm that are on their level. They look at them like roaches.
Yep.
Like an annoying mosquito.
Yep.
Like somebody who's, being a Karen or whatever people say now, bothering you for not wearing a mask in public, bothering you because you don't want to get the vaccine, just getting up in your space because of you wanting to do what you want to do. Now, isn't that seemingly why they would create a control system?
Yeah.
A labor system, a separation of wealth, because they know who they are. That's why they make these secret societies.
Yep.
I mean, without doubt, we would naturally create secret societies without even trying to, because we would just we would have a natural proclivity to join a community that's a like-minded community.
Yep.
And in that, I would be more of a higher consciousness, I suppose, and I would attract people who are like that, and I would be not attracted to people who aren't like that. So through the hierarchy and the nature of it, that's what it is. It would be that, simply. And would now we be this kind of tyrannical, terrible group of people? Yeah. Because we want to be with people who are like us? I mean, that's been amazing to study cults, and I've done a lot of time studying cults, and I've came to a position that I haven't been a part of one a physical part of one. Sure, we've all been a cult, a member of a cult of something, right? We all have to look in the mirror and admit that. Yep. We've all been sucked into some cult. People who are enlightened, who say they got married and they want to go to the courts and get a ring. Well, you're part of the cult of Saturn. Sorry to break it to you.
Yep.
But you've just got sucked into the cult of Saturn. You didn't even know it. So as you become more enlightened, you do need to look at yourself in the face and say, oh, I was part of the cult of science once, where I believed in science. And now I'm starting to get detached from it because I don't vibe with it. Science has ruined our fucking world lately. Mm-hmm. It's really made life uncomfortable for a lot of us. So with that being said, the point that I'm going to with this is that I think a conversation that me and you have personally would probably be more on the frequency bandwidth of what the elites talk about, just high level crazy shit.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to talk about the gas prices or the weather. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
That's just mundane, low level stuff. Yep. Now it's the intentions that we have to talk about. Our intent of our conversation is to provide for people. Me and you are waking up every day and we're trying to offer something of light and love to our communities and to randoms, for sure, because we can't control who clicks our videos. But with that being said, I don't know the pure intentions of a character like Mark Zuckerberg. I just don't. I've never met him. I could assume all I want. I don't feel like he's necessarily my species based off the way he looks and the way he blinks and the way he acts. But at the end of the day, you know, who would you rather have a conversation with, Mark Zuckerberg or, you know, some random guy on the streets? You'd probably get a lot more secrets of the universe through a Zuckerberg. Yep.
Well, you know what's interesting about Zuckerberg as well? He looks just like, in so many ways, he has a cult following as H.P. Lovecraft. If you take H.P. Lovecraft and you take a picture of it and put it side by side, it literally looks like Zuckerberg is the reincarnation of
oh
H.P.
man!
Lovecraft.
So now that you said that, it's reminding me that one character that was in that movie that I'm still trying to remember. It was called Lovecraft Country.
Oh yeah, that was. I watched like a few, and then I was like, this is just not for me. But yeah,
there's something a little bit too like narrative pushing at the time it released and etc. But beyond that, just to say that one character, Jonathan Majors, he's in that one movie, Captive State. Yes, I'm so glad I have my computer. Okay, bro. So it's called Captive State. That's the movie that I was trying to remember, where essentially they are living under a government who's very draconian, like controlling at a rate that is very bad. But you find out through the movie that they're getting their orders from some sort of alien race that invaded the earth.
That's it.
It's also funny that movie released on March 15th, the day before my birthday. And that's the 315. So I'm oh my God, box office was $8.8 million.
Uh-huh.
These numbers I don't even want to look at this, but go watch Captive State. Anyone who's listening to this, watch that movie, because that might literally be the truth.
Yeah.
Although it might not be the 100% truth in regards to like what's physically going on here, but it might at least be the conscious side of it. Like going back to what your theory is, like man is being used. So these presidents, popes, etc., they're being used by something that's way higher in technology and the sophistication of past experiences. You know, maybe we're experiencing what we're experiencing, Logan, because we've fucked this place up so many times. It's just a repeat.
Yeah.
It's just another version of destroying something beautiful.
Well, it leads right into what I believe to be the real honest truth on how everything works. And that's what the Vedas talk about. Everybody that's listening to this transmission, and Jordan, this probably, would include you, is at some point in your life, you've had a brand new pair of white shoes or sneakers, completely white, or a white t-shirt or a white button down or a white blouse or a white pair of jeans, something white. And what happens when you first wear them? You're very careful because you know that they can easily get dirty. But I'm just going to use, for the sake of the example, a white pair of shoes or sneakers. When you buy them, there's no scuffs, marks, there's nothing on them. But over time, you wear them, they become worn, and you may throw them in the wash for the first time and go back to almost brand new, take the laces out, wash them, look like brand new. But over time decays, those sneakers become worn to the point where you just can't wear them anymore. And you got to either give them away or you throw them away. Same with a car. You buy a brand new car, that car on the lot pretty much is going to end up in a junkyard or scrap for parts. And that's what the Vedas talk about. That's what the old ancient text. It's the golden age to the dark age, and then it repeats. Our bodies, we born a baby. If you're born, pretty much with no blemishes, then you time decays you, and your body gets mileage on it. All the organs. I mean, we don't die; we kill ourselves. That's really what it comes down to. And we become senior citizens, and then we become frail, and we go from a fetus, which is almost all water. And then when you get to a senior citizen age, the majority of them are dehydrated. And so you evaporate and you turn into dust. You go from a liquid to a dust state. And that's how life is. Life is golden age to dark age. That's how this cosmos is. That's how this earth is. The earth is a paradise, and it turns into a dirty mess, and it has to be repeated. And then that's where you get all these markers that we're seeing. You're getting the ruler, the puppet master, and what I believe to run this planet. It's the cosmos. It gets sick, it gets dirty, and then it needs to regenerate and rejuvenate. And that's how the golden age to the dark age works. And it's seen throughout all nature. The trees, they grow their leaves, they typically turn colors, they fall off, and they regenerate. So it's just all the same concepts, all wrapped up, and it all links into the golden age to the dark age. Lead to gold, alchemy, that's what it is. And it's all currency. And it's really easy to see in these examples that I've kind of thrown out there.
Yeah, man, that's perfect. Like I was also thinking about that movie Midsummer. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, Midsummer, how like when they throw themselves off that kind of mountain thing, and the Americans start freaking out, being like, what the fuck, what is this ritual? Like, you guys are pagans, and they start freaking out. And I would venture to say that 99.99% of humans who watched that felt similar. Yep. Like, what is that? What are you doing? Right now, when the lady who seems to be one of the leaders walks over to them, she explains to them that they willingly did it because their cycle has come to a pass. Like, they rather take their own experience into their own hands than become dust, than become useless, shitting themselves, needing to be bathed, etc. And now I don't really know how that ties into what you said, but I just think about it from a cultural perspective, how like we've been psyched out into thinking that the material life and our life is so important, and by doing so, I think we've been able to kind of spellcast humanity into being concerned with all the wrong things, like all the least important things. And that's why people willfully give up their freedom. They hand it over because they're like, well, the entity that tells me when to pay my taxes and what I can and can't do has now told me that this is the new thing that I can and can't do. So therefore they've always been right because they've paid me, or they've paved the roads outside, or whatever it is. Yep. You know, our reality has been so manipulated in a way where people don't even know their power. And it's because from day one, they're brought up into a world through a ritual, the birthing ritual, where you have the doctor who's the doc man. Yep. And the doc man basically signs your ass over to the Vatican. Yep. And you don't even know it. And then they pour poison in your eyes, cut the tip of your dick off, vaccinate you, and you're basically just a shell of a perfect thing, or what could have been a perfect thing. You get taught a language, you get taught maths, you get taught the sciences, you get indoctrinated, and therefore you end up being 18, 19, 20 years old. Now you're stressed, you're anxious. You know, it's like, if you think about the cycle of a human life, you're essentially brought here into bondage, and then the exit strategy of it all is equally as fucked, like when you wake up to it. So I've sort of just gotten to a place where I've thought about that too, from a cultural perspective, and like how when you're studying ancient cultures, they look at the cycles of life that you transition to, and they do look at it like the golden age, the bronze age, the rust age, you know?
Yep, they know it's going on cycles.
And I wonder through that, where are we, you know? Like, of course, you said very humbly before, like, you're in this sort of belief that we may move into the age of Aquarius in May. I believe you said May 2022. Yeah,
that's my guess.
Yeah, and like, I know that there could be a lot of argument that could come from that.
Sure.
Right, especially in this kind of community, but I'm super open-minded to all those ideas, and I've thought to myself through my own studies, like, maybe that's why people like us are so special, you know? Like, I've started to dive into, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I started to dive into like Tartaria and mud flood theory, and just like, who built all these crazy buildings that humans couldn't have clearly built because they don't have the stature or the technology to have done this today, let alone 200 years ago. Yep. You know, so it's like, what walked our realm? And then you start to study the Titans, you start to study these giants, and man, I mean, it's such a fascinating thing. Maybe during our lifetime, we're going to be able to walk next to giants.
Yep. I totally think you're. I mean, if you watch any of the newer Godzilla movies, they're talking about reviving the Titans, and you know, it's possible that you are absolutely accurately with your expressions. I mean, if you look at comic books, we've gone from, if you look at evolution of mankind, you know, no one really uses a hardcover Rand McNally map to get around through the city streets. You use your phone and navigation. You know what I mean? And so people thinking that we're going to just stick with a hard cash currencies, I just think it's just really ludicrous thinking. But, you know, records turn into MP3s, maps turn into navigation. So we're naturally moving towards that. And then, so if you look at comic books, they started out on paper and two-dimensional characters, and then they've made dolls, and so then it's moved naturally into the 3D realm, and then it's on the screen of the movies, and it's becoming so lifelike. What's the next stage for that? I believe the next stage where we will see superheroes on the world stage, and those will probably be the Titans. And that will be towards maybe the end of the reset. I mean, you know, if you think about the Greek mythology, the Olympians throwing the Titans down here into Tartarus, which is just Earth, right? Or underground. You know, when the tides turn, I mean, the Olympians are running the Dark Age. They're ruling from above the Dark Age. Well, when we move back into the Golden Age, will it flip sides? Will the Titans then move into the heavenly realms, and the Olympians will then have to play out their parts on the world stage? You know, and during that time of transition, will you see these superheroes come back and live amongst us with this transitional period? You know,
that's been like continually what my mind keeps moving to. Like I keep moving to this idea of like, we're gonna see who the architects are.
Yep.
The architects of the physical matrix I'm talking about. Like, we're gonna see who Gaia allowed to create here.
Yep. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the code says so. You know, astrology, which I'm a huge fan of, both the Vedic and Western, and they both have a massive amount of merit. Jordan, I want to do a little mini reading for you when you get back from your break.
Yeah, brother, that'd be sweet.
Yeah,
I'm really interested to start also learning a little bit more about the Vedic astrology side of things, because I am very new to the astrological kind of language, if you will, because it is its own language. And I've even had some people who follow my work that have heard my predictions and what I say about the market, and then they'll come back to me with some astrology language that kind of just like cements it, you know? Yep. So it's like weird. I've channeled in some of this knowledge without really like knowing about it, but also like I could see that it's algorithmic in a sense, because everything is part of the algorithm now with the computer realm. So I sort of believe, you know, maybe the architects of this computer realm are just using the same algorithms of the past and implementing them. I mean, isn't that kind of what our city and our structures look like too? Like a big battery system, like a big motherboard.
Yeah. Motherboard.
All of our cities from a bird's eye view. You're in a plane and you're like, whoa, look at that.
Yep. It's all motherboards. Yeah.
Right.
It's really all about the motherboard, and astrology has got a huge say in it. I mean, looking at the, when you look at the astrology chart of 1971, which is when the Nixon shock, right? Now, if you just focus on the fifth house, remember the fifth house is the throat chakra. Right. And the throat chakra is tied to Shiva, which is tied to Jupiter. And the fifth house is Leo, the lion, which is ruled by the sun, which is gold. Well, in the fifth house during the Nixon shock, you had Saturn there. Saturn was in the fifth house during Nixon's speech of delivering to the world this message of cutting cords with, you know, gold and the currency and all that kind of stuff. Well, then when you go back and you look at 1944 and Bretton Woods, July 22nd, Guess where Saturn was at? It was in the 5th house. Same spot. Same spot. Yeah. Same.
And this is also another interesting thing that I've thought about is the color of the throat chakra being blue, and the blue for the above, for the sky, for the firmament, but blue comes back to that 16 in Chaldean.
Blue 16. The word hell is 16. The word Shiva is 16. So when you take the rainbow, you're going to have the flip side of it, because if you look at how the camera works, have you ever studied the camera obscura, like the first cameras?
Yeah, actually, I watched somebody who did a really solid breakdown of describing it, and it wasn't a full blown breakdown on just that camera obscura, but it was sort of implementing it in part of a bigger piece of work. But yeah, I would love to know more of your thoughts on it.
Well, it's just very simple. It's an image from the as above. When it's projected down here, it's inverted. So that's why what people say we're in the upside down world. You'll see all this, Wonderland and the Hangman and the Tarot, and it's because of that whole phenomenon. So
yeah, that's Odin. That's Odin, the Hanged Man.
Yep.
Who's Jesus?
Who's Thor?
Yep.
Thor's name is Thor Odinson.
G Zeus.
Jesus. Yeah. Thor Odinson is 50, which is tin, which is Jupiter's element, the merger of worlds. But anyway, you have this astrology chart that is twofold. It's the as above chart is the default chart, which the Masons use in their royal arch, which is the sign of Aries through Libra, which is the rainbow.
Yep.
And then
Aries is Mercury, right?
Yeah, it would be tied to Mercury.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you'd have the dance floor, as I like to call it, is
the checkerboard, the dance floor.
Yeah, it's a dance floor.
I love that. Holy shit, that's great, man. The dance floor.
The dance floor. That's Earth. That's the motherboard, and that would be represented by the 5 signs: Scorpio through Pisces. Scorpio and Pisces are the two ends, the two pillars holding in the water. Scorpio's water, Pisces is water. Then you have fire, air, and earth. Aquarius, Capricorn, and Sagittarius, which that runs the dance floor. So you have this as above default chart, and then when you look at the so below chart, it's flipped. You then have Aries starting off where Pisces is on the as above, but it's just so fascinating because 5 is so big when you look at this Bretton Woods, the ending point in the 1971. And then both of them having Saturn in the 5th house, which is, Saturn is kind of the nemesis of the sun. Saturn's known as the black sun. So it's really interesting because you have the Titans and the Olympians. You bring the Greek mythology into what these charts are showing, with these Shemitah years and this Jubilee year of 1972 and 3. Oh my God, my mind's blown right now.
Yeah, it's super, dude. It's super interesting. And it shows up in the price action too. It shows up in the price action on even really small, what would seem in unimportant things. It's just knowing this code and being able to apply this code is really helpful for people who are looking to become investors. And it's kind of funny how you could bypass a lot of the struggle of investing by just seeing the code. I've invested heavily in projects just because they're heavily tied to Saturn or Venus.
Yep.
By the code.
Yep.
I don't need to know all the fluff.
Yep.
I know what's designed to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Capricorn is the ruler of the dance floor. It sits in when you look at the so below chart, it would be Cancer, the flip side of it. But in the as above, it's Saturn running the dance floor in the 6 o'clock position. And so you're absolutely spot on. Capricorn is the sea goat, and we're in the sea of space under maritime law. And, it's just all.
And that connection to Mecca. I was thinking about that too, with the black cube and Saturn's black cube. But of course, black cube gives you 27 in Chaldean, which ties back to Jupiter. And I was thinking though, about this ritual and how, again, all these religions tie back to this same origin point. Basically, you just end up where it's all the same. They're all ran by Jupiter and Saturn primarily. Yep. And they visualize the sun, or Sirius possibly, as their main deity. Yep. And the one who gives the orders to the rest. You know, maybe Saturn and Jupiter being the extreme energies, the 1 and 2, and then you have Venus somewhat, Lucifer, you know, kind of balancing it all out, right? Like you have Adam and Eve being the extremes, and then you have Lucifer, the serpent, balancing it all out, kind of being the mediator between, you know, to like snap you out of reality. Here, eat from the tree of knowledge so you could be, you could become enlightened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and astrology, you know, you
and
have
now the bit apple is on the back of your phone.
Exactly. You have in astrology, you know, you have the center point of the chart, which is position number 13. And that's why 13 is so powerful. And that's known as, you know, Ophiuchus, which is not really. Oh
man, you brought that up, and that really, like, it bothers me because I was doing a decode for this crypto called Zinfin Network. I think I talked to you about it, XDC, and so I don't know how to pronounce that. You said Ophiuchus? Ophiuchus. Okay, so this was tied to that crypto, and I fucking forgot it as part of my decode. But I need to, I thought that would be like a huge pineal buster, you know, to bring that up because it's like not talked about. It's sort of like Pluto, right? Like Pluto was kind of disregarded because of the NASA scam. But if you look at it from the mythological perspective and like all those connections that we made earlier with going back to the Matrix movie. And then what is the biggest moon of Pluto? I think it's called Charon. And Charon is the ferryman that brings in the dead bodies to move into where they will go. And, you know, 3 passes through the experience of being a human gets you into Elysium.
Yep.
So that's a fascinating, like, you just learn that story and then you see all the movies that basically just and all the, you know, deep esoteric principles of reality, and it's all there, you know, it's all there through the mythology. But if you wanted to pay attention to the science side of it, you'd get lost.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many I mean, Pluto, you know, in numerology, there is this concept of taking the capstone of each word. So those of you that like numerology, if you take your full name, your birth name, and just take the first digit, the first letters of each of your first, middle, and last, that would be, you know, typically it'd be three letters. That kind of is the rudder to your ship. That will direct and navigate. That will tell a lot about who you are. And Pluto starts with the letter P, which is the 16th letter, which is tied to Shiva. You know, Shiva's 16, the destroyer, 16 being hell, tied to Hades, and that's tied to Pluto.
That's so crazy because my email that I share publicly is JMA Trading for Jordan Michael Alejandro. And the way my name is spelled, my middle name is not spelled the way you normally spell Michael. But yeah, that's really funny because the JMA gets you to the 24 in English ordinal. And then also it's the 6 in Chaldean.
Your JMA?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, you break your 10, 13, 1, which is 141, which is pi, brother.
Yeah.
JMA is pi.
Yeah, it's wild, man. I need to look into that deeper, but that's 6 in Chaldean, coming back to I am.
Yeah, I'll help you out with all that stuff when I break
super interesting stuff, man.
Yeah, it's there's so many facets.
But also that's always been something I've chosen kind of like as a professional sort of name. Like it's the name of my LLC, which is my business. It's JMA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10, 13, 1. Yeah.
Thinking about that more now that you brought that up.
Yeah. I mean, the tie-ins for you and I, it's 24. I was born on 2/4.
Oh yeah. That's okay. So that's interesting too, because the JMA equals 24 in English ordinal.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm born on 2/4.
And what's your last name literally has pi in it.
Twice.
Right? It's like Piet.
It's
pi. I pronounced it right. Good for me.
You did. Yeah. It's Piet. So, when you separate the syllables, pi obviously is pi. And then the 2 T's that come together form the symbol of pi. So I literally have pi twice in my last name, and Piet equals the number 27.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's like with my last name being Alejandro, which is the Alexander in Spanish. So okay. Alexander the Great, baby.
What is Alejandro?
And 29 in Chaldean, but it gets the 55 in reverse full reduction, which is the same as tying back to Satoshi Nakamoto. I swear I don't know anything about that guy.
Well, again, 29 is tied to 27 because 27 in the string of pi occupies digits 28 and 29.
Yeah, that's the 10th prime too. So that's the
prime.
That's
10th
the
prime.
restart.
And 10 and 11 is the number 58 occupies the digits 10 and 11, and 58 Shemitah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. I've never typed in my full name into this. How the hell haven't I done this yet?
Yeah.
My Chaldean is 66.
Oh my. Donald John Trump is 66.
Oh no.
Yeah, and so is
there we are.
So is Michael Richard Pence. They're both 66.
Fuck, man. They're gonna capture me one day. I'm gonna have like a Black Hawk outside my house. Keep making these fucking videos.
I may be flying the helicopter, dude.
Oh snap! Yeah, we're gonna go to Hollow Earth, man. We got to get out of this place. Got to go where the blueberries are the size of our heads.
Yeah.
So they say.
Yeah. I before I forget, I just want to tell you the word indoctrinate is 42. Just wanted to say that because it's kind of funny.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's like a very like ever since I started using that word, I've noticed like one of the things that I've noticed about talking to just like normal people in the Matrix is when you use words like that to describe things that are normally like school, for instance. I just call them indoctrination camps, but I say when you go to school, you're not learning anything. The closest thing to learning is learning how to be a subservient sheep, right? But utilizing the word indoctrinate in a scenario where you're talking about education, people like short circuit when they hear you say that word. Have you noticed it's such like an energy severing word?
Yeah.
For normal people at least. And I don't talk to too many normal people, of course, but whenever I do, I always notice that like it's hard to have an argument with somebody when you're talking at that level. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't sound disrespectful. It doesn't sound like you're like shitting on them or saying that their kid who went to college is an idiot. You're just trying to say like, if you just nonchalantly say indoctrinate,
yeah,
it like passes by them. You know what I mean? It's like it makes me think of that movie oh man, with what was his name, the Psycho, American Psycho or whatever, where he's talking to the girl and
Christian
he's like
Bale.
Yeah, Christian Bale. He's like saying that he's gonna kill her and stuff, and she doesn't even know he said it because he's like being so nonchalant about it. It's like the same thing. Like when you just spellcast with confidence and you say what you say, like because that's the way you know, that's where you're at in your experience of this matrix. You know, the average person can't even, they don't even know what you're saying. You could literally be smiling at them saying like, hey, I hate you. And they're just nodding your head and they'll be like, oh, how's your day going today?
Yeah.
It's like the Truman Show, right?
It is. Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, the word, you know, when you look at these words and, you know, they are spells, you know, indoctrinate, you go inward, and the word in is the 9 and the 14. The letter I is 9, N is 14. And that's a direct match to pineal. Pi is 9 and neal is 14. So when you go inward, you're going into the pineal gland. And in Chaldean is 6, and 6 is tied to the pineal gland because the sixth chakra is the pineal gland.
This is so relevant too, because with my decode of Zinfin, the way that they write their name is X capital and F capital, and then there's IN separated, IN. And of course, in is 6 in Chaldean. Then you have the second in being the 6, and then the F being the 6th letter in the alphabet. So it's the 666, which has the X before it. So the way that I interpreted that is it's the crucifixion. You have the 666 being the carbon man, the carbon body, and the X for the cross, the crucifix. So it's Zinfin. If you look at it from that lens, it's the 24 leading to the 666, or the cross with the carbon body.
Yep. Well, I mean, then you bring in absolutely that. Those are fantastic observations. When you look at the Francis Bacon cipher, which is the exclusive cipher of the Vatican, by the way, it's all dog Latin capital. The 50th letter is the capital X. And remember, 50 is Tin, which is Jupiter, which is Jesus, which leads to the crucifixion.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to see how all those numbers come to life. And also, now that you've brought up that Francis Bacon, I definitely need to start working with that more. Can you send me some information that kind of solidifies the utilization of it by the Vatican. I would love to get more data on that, because
Yeah,
I tried my own research and I just couldn't.
I'm working on a decode just for the Dog Latin, and it being the code of the Vatican, and how to decode from it, because there's, you obviously can get your total output, like obviously, like just go in and you type in Chaldean in the Chaldean cipher, it's 27, right? So I mean, I know that's why I favor the Chaldean. I think the Chaldean's closest to the source than all the other ones, right? And if you know the significance of why it uses the numbers 1 through 8 only, and then it works off of phonetics, which is the vibrational frequency, you would know that's why it's so very special. But the Francis Bacon is typically utilized through the numbers 1 through 52, because it uses the lowercase and then the uppercase. So it uses the numbers 1 through 52. 52, of course, is tied to the king of the earth. And it's tied to tellurium, the 52nd element, which means tellus from the Latin word, and it means earth. So that's why it's so very special. Doesn't mean it's evil, but if you just type in Vatican under Francis Bacon, you're going to get 252. And that's a number in itself. But if you do the rules of Francis Bacon, you would subtract the number 52 from your total until you get to the number 52 or below. And
right, that's the special part right there that people need to pay attention to.
Right. And Vatican.
So not only are you're writing it capital every word, which is giving you different values, because the capital letters and the lowercase letters have different values in the Francis Bacon cipher, but then you're also going that extra step and you're subtracting 52 and continuing to press equal sign until you get it below 52 again.
Yeah. And Vatican tells you the story. Their total is 252, and when you reduce it down, you get to the number 44, which is currency, gold currency. And they have.
And then also remember, the 4 is Dalet in Hebrew, which is the door.
The door.
And the keyhole of the Vatican, showing you how you get in the door.
Yeah, and they have gold and white on their flag.
And another really interesting thing, my name in Francis Bacon is 734, written out, my whole entire name, right?
Okay.
And after reduction, you get to the
6 of hearts, 6.
Yeah, you get to the 6. So I have the 6 in my Francis Bacon and a 66 in my Chaldean.
Yeah, there you go.
The carbon man.
You evil number of the beast, man.
Oh man, yeah. I've spent my whole last month in my decoding masterclass that I was doing, my gematria masterclass, kind of breaking down the significance of the 666 and why this is not negative, and why it's kind of harmful that we as decoders could ever attach a negative connotation to a number, because none of this is positive or negative. Sure, from a battery perspective, it could be looked at that way, like an anode cathode, but between us and our viewers who might be, learning the ins and outs of decoding, it's not important to focus on if the word Jesuit equals 42. That doesn't mean everything about the Jesuits, first of all, is bad. And that also doesn't mean that everything else about the number 42 ties to the Jesuits. And it also doesn't mean that everything that number is tied to is bad.
Right.
That is very human of us. It's very human to just look at something and go, that's bad. And that's kind of my flex on humanity, to show you that the 666 just comes back to carbon, which is basically all life.
Yep.
So by you applying it to the number of the beast, which, by the way, I don't believe that's kind of what the Bible was saying. I believe that had more to do with the X. But anyways, that's a separate story. The number of the beast is hilarious, because the number of the beast is carbon.
Yep.
Everything here is carbon.
Yep. That's what people.
So we're all the beast.
But see, people don't. Yeah, and people don't. They don't really know the indoctrination. I mean, the word beast in Francis Bacon ends up becoming 21, and 21 in the tarot is the world card. So that's the world is the beast system. You're living in it. You're living in
Gaia. It's Gaia.
Gaia. It's the belly of the beast. The belly is the bladder, which is the DNA and the double helix.
That's we're in the terranium, bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is hilarious too, because carbon, with the Francis Bacon thing that you were discussing, comes back to 1.
Come back to 1, yeah. Yep.
Like, that's beautiful, right? It just
That
shows
is.
you the code. It shows you how. And again, like, Logan, your people and my people should be very grateful for that a nugget of wisdom of sharing the Francis Bacon cipher in all capitals and subtracting the 52s. Like, come on, man. That's such an incredible secret that I think most people would like charge for, like, and you're sitting here giving that out for free as like, and it's so amazing. Like, I'm just playing around with it myself for fun. And although I haven't back tested it yet, that's why I haven't revealed it. And I'm waiting for you to sort of, bring it up before I start working with it. But like, that's just such an amazing decoding tool to put in your toolbox. Wow. What an addition to my work that's going to be.
Oh, dude, when you get into it, you're gonna be on cloud nine, man. I give credit where credit's due. It's actually my friend Sharon Jeffers, the great card reader. She's been reading the cards for about 40 years, and she taught me.
OG.
She's an OG, man, of the cards of illumination. She taught me this. I mean, I was messing around with the Francis Bacon before I met her, but I never subtracted the 52, and then she got me involved in the cards, and there's 52 cards in the deck. And then I found out how special the 52 is. The 52, of course, is tied to the magic square of Saturn, because if you put the symbol of the sigil of Saturn over the magic square, it encapsulates the numbers 8, 5, and 2. And the 8, 5, and 2 is the middle pillar on your calculator or dial pad, which is the androgynous Gaia. It's Earth, right? So the 5 and 2 are owned by the 8, and that's why the numbers 8, 5, and 2 go together. And right. Scorpio.
And then, of course, we have the obvious, the 52 weeks of the year.
52 weeks.
Cycle of Gaia. Just to be simple, and I mean the 52 number, and I would assume, when it's divided by 2 exactly, and nothing in nature is a full integer, right? Like, we could all agree that it's Fibonacci, it's infinite, it's decimal points, right? That's nature. It's not perfect, it's chaos. But that 52 divided by 2, coming back to the 26, and I would assume if we're going to start throwing in decimal points in there somewhere, you're probably going to get a lot closer to that 27. And if we were to just consider all of time, of course, time is manipulated, and it's obviously manipulated through the calendars all being different and the years being considered different by monks and by the people of the Judaic faith, and etc. But throughout time manipulation, it's kind of interesting to see that 52 is like what we've all agreed on as a world.
Yep.
Even though that comes from the Roman parasite.
Yep. Yeah. And, I mean, if you do time through Francis Bacon, it becomes 47, which is tetragrammaton, which is Saturn, it's the time god. Tetragrammaton is the box that we live in, the cube.
Yeah. I was just having fun with the word Atlantis. And with the Francis Bacon, you get a 44.
There you go, brother.
So like Atlantis with the 44, and then also you have the 22 in Chaldean. And I've just been thinking about it more lately, Atlantis and this story, because there's a content creator that I watch. His name is God Gave Lamst. I think he's like a Belgian guy. He's fucking incredible. Like, his work is... There's very few people that I subscribe to, first of all, and there's very few people that I'm willing to work with in this space when it comes to maybe things that don't relate to crypto, you know, and he is absolutely one of them. Like, where him and John Levy, that would be incredible to work with either of those guys. But anyways, this guy kind of breaking down Atlantis and what it could be, and, going to the schematic of the build out of Disney World and Disney World's creation through the Nazis, coming back to Operation Paperclip, and what we talked about in our first call, discussing the firmament and where my name came from, and how Warner von Braun's tombstone talks about the firmament. And it's just so interesting. Like, we could be encapsulated within somewhat of a terrarium, and this is Atlantis. The whole realm, the whole realm that we're allowed access to might be Atlantis, which is the target. Which, by the way, you look at the brand Target, the whatever, and it's the bullseye around the bull terrier. Yep. The bull terrier.
Yep.
Which comes back to Taurus.
Yep. Which
this
is field. Yeah.
It's so intentional.
It is.
The red and white color It's all intentional, guys. Like, people need to see that if you want to be a great decoder, it's not only about the numbers, it's about seeing these little intricacies of the logos and the symbology. You know, one thing that might be kind of a new perspective for people to consider, if you study the like Hebrew faith, there's this horn. I don't know the name of the horn, but if you go on Wikipedia and search this horn that is being used, it's like blown to be the transition of the year, or like it's used for certain purposes. I think it's a ram's horn.
On the 10th month of the 7th day of the 10th month, I think it is.
So that's Rosh Hashanah. That's the I believe, but I don't want to get too
right.
ahead of myself.
Horn. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Now, this ram's horn, the picture they show you on Wikipedia of it, when it's the ram's horn talked about in the Hebrew application, it literally looks like a Nike symbol.
Yep. Saturn.
It's those little things, and it's those little things. And it's like, I've thought about that more and more, how while I'm decoding, I get way better at decoding, not just from the numbers, but just having the eyes to notice these little, like, you know, like looking at the word Google and how its L is in it, and the 2 G's around the 2 zeros. The G being capitalized, like the Freemason logo, the Gmail literally looking like the actual apron of the Freemasons.
Yep. Well, the capital G in Francis Bacon is the 33rd letter.
Wow. Well, yeah, I never thought about that.
Yep. Which is why
that's super interesting too. I was actually talking about that this morning with Jesus being allegedly crucified at 33. But yep. Wow, man, like the Ophiuchus. I forgot how to say it. Ophiuchus. That and the Francis Bacon cipher are like 2 things that I'm definitely going to be spending a lot of time on, like just learning more about, because again, it's like hidden, not really that popular in the decoding realm. I've never heard anyone talk about this Francis Bacon in this way. Yeah, well, I mean, again, I give Sharon kind of gave me the nuggets on that, and then I started really messing around with it. And I actually have a video on my channel, how to decode your name through Francis Bacon numerology. I put that one out there for people, you know, and I don't monetize my channel because I can't stand commercials. So all this stuff is, you know, commercial free, unadulterated information that's sent your way. You know what when you were talking about the ram's horn, you know what I found, you know what I see on that, dude? That is the freaking symbol of the yod. Yep. Mm-hmm. And that's the apostrophe. Anytime you put an apostrophe over a word, it's adding on that whatever. It's the yod. It's the yod, the 10th letter. And 10 and 11, of course, in the string of pi, it takes the 5 and the 8, which is puppet master. Puppet Master's 50. Yeah, I think I was talking to you about, or I was talking to my group of people about the Yod Vahe being the 5, 6, or the 10, 5, 6, 5, right? Which comes to the 26, right? Yep. So that 26 coming back to God, and that 26 also coming back to carbon in the full reduction cipher. So it's like, it's really it's a really interesting thing to consider it through that lens of, like, you know, going back to what we were talking about before with the 666 and how it's not actually the number of the beast, and how it's carbon and being tied back to creation. Well, 26th element is iron, and what do we have in our blood? Right. Yeah, and that's what they're using to make all these fake GMO, like crazy Franken meat. Yeah, it's Franken meat products. They're putting fucking heme iron in it or whatever. Yep. And it's like, it's funny. Like, so I eat plant-based, and I have people all the time that are like, "Oh, you eat those fake soy burgers?" And I'm like, bro, like, I eat Mother Nature's foods. Like, so when you hear like just stop being disrespectful to people because of their choices. It's like, how about you ask me a question instead of making a statement? How about that? Yeah. Would that make you feel a little bit like more like worth of a conversation? But anyways, that's the energy that you get for deciding how you want to eat. You know, it's kind of like being treated the way you are because of the color of your skin. Yeah. Or being treated the way you are because you're a female. It's like, you know, those are uncontrollable things, but I would also assume that the reason I selected, or I came to this way of eating that I came to, had nothing to do with my choice. My higher self pushed me into that because of my morals and my vibrational frequency. Yep. So when I'm around that type of food, I feel disturbed. My vibration is off. I change and I'm no longer me anymore. So that's all it is. I'm not trying to say that you should eat how I eat or whatever. I'm just saying that's how I am experiencing this body. So again, very, very good, like kind of lesson coming back to some of the things we were talking about earlier. I feel like we've shared so many so many wise words of just how to be a better person.
Yep. Yeah. And it absolutely comes down to, if you're resonating with this message, ladies and gentlemen, number one, and this is coming from me, make the truth your own, because that's all that matters. And don't be under the guise or influence of somebody when it comes to making your truth. Got to make the truth your own and decode yourself. I'm part of Santos and Danny and the Syncretism Society, and they're big flat earthers, right? And that's totally fine. And I that has jarred something in me to look at some things that are bringing up some possibilities of why the globe was created, whether or not it's real or not.
Oh yeah. Actually, that's something we do need to talk about. You went on this Syncretism Society podcast as a guest, right?
I did. I was able to. Danny invited me on because Santos couldn't be there, and he had David Weiss, who's a huge name on the world stage for the flat Earth, and I got some really good schooling in this area. But it sparked something in me beyond just, the Earth is flat, and I'm not. For me, I personally, and I told these guys, it's not going to change my life. They think it will. They think that it changes your life. I'm at a level now where I don't even get into the flat Earth, and my life has completely been changed by decoding and realizing my true power and what my blueprint is. But I think that we remember I was telling you, and you said, "Oh my God, you're the first person that has
literally the first person who's ever taken the words out of my mouth." See,
so this is coming from Jordan and myself. And Jordan, and I'll give you credit because I just come up with this kind of download. But I'm walking to the gym after I did that podcast with David Weiss and Danny on the Flat Earth and the Syncretism Society, and I was like, you know what? I think NASA's telling you that we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, because that's the firmament or whatever's protecting the Earth. That's what's spinning around the Earth at 1,000 miles an hour, and it's creating a barrier. And can you get out of that barrier? I don't know. That's for another topic of discussion.
Right. Like, it's not that what you said, just to clear it up, it's not that the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. It's that the firmament is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. Now, this is fucking mind-boggling.
It is
for people. And it's something that I said on one live stream, and I articulated it in a way where it became sort of a rant. Because I was just kind of like over it with people saying my channel was a flat Earth channel and shit like that, because it's not. So I just like laid it out, I just laid it out. I was like, hey, I really think that the firmament is a thing, and that it's a force field, and it's moving. Yep. And it's moving at a rate that is creating some sort of protection to us.
Yep.
And all of this shit that NASA's telling us is somewhat partially true, but it's about the overall narrative being the deception.
Yep. Yeah. And I remember we talked about this, like, I think NASA's and every archetype, we're all archetypes. But I think that there really is no deception. Everything just is. We just call it that. But they're just trying to maybe create the fabric of reality and change it to their liking. And that's why they're telling you these ideas. And when you indoctrinate enough people and you get enough energy into these magic spells, they manifest.
That's like what you just said right there. Like, that's beyond the red pill. It's like the clear pill. I am 100% like in the same position when it comes to like my observation of the realm and the concept behind deception or influence, right? If you can get everyone to believe something, even if it's fucking fake, you will plasmatize with belief to create reality.
1,000.
So the reason we're walking around and people think that taking a vaccine is good is because that's how their belief system has come to that conclusion. Yep. And it doesn't matter if their grandma dies or their brother becomes paralyzed. It doesn't matter, because they've been parasited, and the parasite needs hosts, right? And that host is just the best believer.
Yep. That's
what I've decided to do while I'm here in this realm, is to not believe shit.
Yep.
Just be open-minded. Whatever could be is, and whatever I am resonating with at the time, I'm accepting to be defeated and change.
Yep.
You know, like I'm not ever going to plasmatize my belief to being always something, you know, like, because that kind of ruins the purpose of being here. Everything operates in chaos. So why don't I just give into that and allow such?
Yep. Well, again, you know, and speaking of chaos, the only element on the periodic table that encapsulates chaos and order is the 27th element, called cobalt, and the abbreviation is C and O, and that's chaos and order. And cobalt's atomic weight is 58, which is tied to Puppet Master. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. It's just,
yeah, that's amazing, man.
Yeah, and that's currency. 27's currency, which is chaos and order. But absolutely, man. I think the next conversation that we may have, because I'm gonna head to the gym, my friend. I'm gonna probably end this transmission with you, and we've been on quite a while. And I thank you for your time. But I think that's the next. If you want to go into another topic and make this kind of a series, is getting into deception versus influence. I think this is a huge freaking topic that we can use as a foundation for the next transmission we do.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, that's definitely one of the bigger ones where I've started to consider such, because again, there's a realm for people who have the consciousness to be open-minded to all things, and then there's the masses who you could essentially just give them the Rubik's cube and they'll just keep mixing it up and then dropping it when they get frustrated because they can't figure it out, and they'll let somebody else tell them how to live. So that idea of influence and deception kind of plays its role in that duality of the conscious community, of the people who believe that this is completely natural, or the people that believe this is 100% ritual. You know, I think that conversation that we'll have in the future will kind of bring together the two communities, and there'll be less division and more partnership. Yeah,
because it all leads to everything. I mean, you know, that's tied to the Vedas. I just put a nice quote on that out there, that everything comes from everything. All comes from everything. But you know, influence has the word in, which is indoctrinate, going inward. In is pineal gland. Anytime you see anytime you're decoding and you have the word in attached to the other word, it means pineal gland. It means the third eye. And it means that it's all about, and then you have inception and all these words, indium. So, you know, it's all about
understand,
man.
Right.
Understand versus understand is a big difference with the two definitions. But I wanted to leave the listeners that have listened to this long transmission, and thanking everybody for sticking by us through this great conversation. And I'm very grateful that we've been able to do part 2 of this. I wanted to just say that, you know, through my research, I found that through somebody that had put something out there, sent me an email, and I can't remember who this person was, but I'll thank them anyway, saying that there's only 2 flags on the world stage that are 1-to-1 ratio or square shaped. And that is the Vatican flag and the flag of Switzerland. Those
the hidden hand.
That's it, brother. And Switzerland has the cross on it, and the Vatican have the keys. And the Vatican has the gold, and Switzerland has the red. And the big city in Switzerland is called Geneva. And Geneva not only has the United Nations as their foundation, but they also have a little organization called CERN. And CERN, in my opinion, is the company or organization that is literally drilling into the cosmos or the quantum realm. And it is very possible that these 2 cities, the Vatican and Geneva, are tied through the latitude, longitude on the world stage. And the Vatican has such a huge conglomerate of power that they are feeding the ideas of the world that everybody's feeding into through indoctrination into CERN, and CERN's digging into the quantum realm, creating the very fabric of our reality. And that's all I want to say on that, as an idea based on complete theory at this point. I can't prove any of that, but that's what I wanted to leave the listeners off with. If you have something to add, Jordan, or you want to go off on a different realm,
just one final note, everyone. Switzerland equals 41 in Chaldean. Their calling code is 41. And the amount of space of Switzerland is 41.2 kilometers of area.
Oh, there you go.
It's all in the numbers. It's all there.
It always
you diving into doing it with the longitude and latitude, etc. It's also you could do it with so many numbers. It's right there, and it's in the Chaldean cipher. So it's as Logan says, most pure. It's not we're not doing any extra steps here. We're just taking the word Switzerland. You get the 41 in Chaldean. It's beautiful.
So remember, 41 is the 13th prime number. Yeah, 13th prime number.
All right, brother. Well, so much love to you and to all of your guests. I really appreciate anyone who's new to my work or hasn't watched the first version of our podcast. And if you like this, they should probably definitely go watch the first one, because there was a lot of more unique information in that. I feel like we had wow, how long collectively? Probably 5 hours between these two.
Yeah, it's definitely, this is probably going to match. I can't wait to see the numbers. I mean, our first one was 2 hours and 47 minutes, and that's tied to the 96 element, which is yin yang. But anyway, I can't wait to see what the total accumulation of time will be on this once I throw this up and add the bells and whistles onto it. Everything's all improv. I know it's going to be esoteric. But yeah, a big shout out to all you listeners, Jordan. If you're not following Jordan and Waters Above Crypto, he's got a niche market. He's got something that no one's doing. So you're talking to somebody who doesn't have any competition, if you will, at this point, which is a beautiful thing. And you should definitely go and subscribe to his channel. But much love to all you and your community, Jordan. And I look forward to doing another part 3. I don't even know what I'm going to name this. If you have any ideas, just offline, just text me.
But I love how our first episode has 3.3K views
right now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh man. Well, yeah, I will definitely think of an idea. I mean, I think we talked about so much more than crypto. I think the way this kicked off about Shemitah and just the upcoming reset, I think that's really what this is. This is the chat about the Great Reset, man. Yeah. We went into everything. We talked about the Titans walking among us. We talked about the terrarium Earth prison planet. I mean, I can name it all, but that's really what the concept is the Bretton Woods leading into the 50th anniversary of Nixon shock, which is literally 10 days from today. And this is so relevant. This whole conversation is going to be coming to life so soon. It's not this isn't like a prophecy of 20 years in the making. This is stuff that could be going on as soon as tomorrow, with the Satoshi white paper being 666 weeks. We talked about so much. I mean, it's incredible. This was about the Great Reset.
Yeah. Well, Secret Destroyer equals 55. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart. I know Jordan would attribute himself to that statement there. For all of you fellow decoders out there around the world, thank you so very much for joining in on this long transmission. And I hope you were able to find at least just one gold nugget that you could take away, implement in your own life or your own decoding world to go further and deeper into more of your own research. So for myself, Logan at Decode Your Reality, Jordan at Waters Above Crypto, we thank you very, very much. Much love to all of you and your communities. Until next time, we will see you later.